Hello guys, this is your friend from ninjavibeZ and we are back with a new fanfic, which is What If Naruto awakened as the legendary Saiyan king and ruled the Shinobi world with a divine harem part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Kurd Hospital Room 243. One of the nurses in the hallway of the hospital walked by one of the patient's room before. "Ah, get that needle away from me," screamed a frantic Naruto. And before she knew it, the door came flying off its hinges, courtesy of a medical nin who crashed into a wall and had the imprint of a foot on his face. And the nurse ekes out in surprise as this happened. She looked inside the room only to see a 12-year-old Naruto and sweat drops at the sight. He was in a hospital gown wearing some boxers underneath. Nar had two med ninja in a single arm lock. The other one interlocked around his legs and the last one was being strangled by his tail in a comical fashion. And each of them were struggling to get out of his iron grip and with their faces going from blue to purple, while a frantic nurse with the needle in her hand was standing at the sides wondering what to do. At first, she tried to calm him down. But when he bared his teeth, revealing a pair of lengthened canines, and growled at her in an animalistic way, she instantly backed away, not wanting to get bitten by him. As this chaotic scene occurred, May was making one of her daily routes in the building, checking not just the injured rebels, but even the enemy ninja. She saw one of the nurses helping one of the medical ninja up and realized that this was Naruto's room in size. As she entered the room, she sweat drops at the sight and shakes her head in amusement. "May-chan, help me, they're trying to give me shot," Nar cried. Both the nurse and the four medical ninja were giving her a pleading look to help them. So she decided to intervene. She knelt down next to him, leaned forward, and kissed him on the lips, making the young Saiyan eyes widen in surprise and freeze at the contact. He lessened his grip on the four, who managed to slip out of his grasp and inhale air at an alarming rate before rushing out the room. While the nurse took this opportunity to give him the shot before leaving out the room, May ended the kiss and then looked down at the dazed warrior in training, placing her hands on her hips and having a look of amusement on her face. "What am I going to do with you, Naruto? Did you have to strangle four med nin to death and attempt to bite the nurse's arm off? They're just trying to help you get better." Nar snapped out of his daze and had the gall to look sheepish. "Sorry, May-chan, but I don't really like hospitals and tend to steer away from them, especially needles." "I hate needles," he said with a pout on his face, while May giggles at his action. "So, what has happened to Yagura? He's alive but still recovering. He's lucky to even be alive after you hit him with that attack. And it's mostly because the Sanvi took most of the blunt force." She answered and wondered just how he pulled an attack of that magnitude off, especially since it practically rivaled that of an Amari menacing ball. One of the Beiju's most powerful and signature move. Nar on the other hand nodded. "Yeah, that was my first time using that move on an opponent of Yagura's level. And I also lessened the technique's attack power. Otherwise, I would have not only destroyed Yagura and the village, but also half of Water Country," he answered, which made her eyes widen at the implication before realizing something. Naruto if I may, asked, "What was that transformation you used when you fought Yagura?" She wondered, since the image of Naruto with golden hair, piercing teal eyes, and that golden aura was still fresh on her mind. "Oh, well, it's kind of a transformation my ancestor achieved a long time ago. Kind of like a hiding jutsu, secret technique, as only members of my family can use, but with a twist since it is more bloodline based and takes a while to gain and master," he explained. May on the other hand took the info in a nods. She knew he was leaving a few things out, but she could understand that it was a family secret. I see. So that's how you were able to easily beat Yagura. She pondered, and that was when Naruto chuckled in a sheepish manner. Actually, if I wanted to, I could have easily beat Yagura in my normal state without transforming, but I didn't want to carry out the fight and try to reduce collateral damage before things went out of hand. And to be honest, I could have used another technique that would have increased my natural power. But it would have done more harm than good, since it puts a major strain on my body, and if used too much could actually of not kill me. So that's why I used my transformation instead. He explained. May remained silent for a while before shaking her head in amusement. You really are an enigma, Naruto. She replied back to the grinning Saiyan. Yasa, so I'm told, he said back before she knew it. He had placed his hands around her, surprising the russet-haired Kunoichi. She then looked into his eyes, and they radiated with warmth, kindness, and love. Mei-chan, I have to be honest. During the time I've been in Kiri and I've met you, I sort of gained a crush on you, he answered with a small blush on her face, and her eyes widened at the confession. What was her reply before his eyes smiled at her shocked form? Yeah, at first it started off as what you would call puppy love, due to the fact that I was entranced by how beautiful you were before getting to know a little more about you. When I saw how you kept charge of the rebels and how strong you were, I was amazed. But it was mostly because you were strong-spirited and determined. You didn't care how the odds were against you, and it was your desire to save your home that gave your comrades the strength to go on even when things looked bleak. Another fact is that you treated everyone in an equal manner and didn't see yourself as someone who was better than others, and always put the lives of others above your own, and that is why I have developed feelings for you. Mei just looked at Naruto with surprise in her eyes before she remembered his words. As she looked into his eyes, she saw the sincerity of how much he wanted to get to know her, and on a more personal level. She already knew of his clan status since he told her early on, and of how the CRA was undoubtedly going to be pushed on him when he was older. Though, that didn't mean anything to her. He has feelings for me just like I do. Thank you, Kami. She squealed in her mindscape while a chibi form danced around in her mindscape. Nar, that was the most beautiful thing you've ever said to me, and I am beyond flattered. Her cheeks grew pink and looked away slightly before looking back at him. I know this seems so strange, especially with our age difference, but seeing you fight Yagura and how strong-willed you were showed me that you were more of a man than you were a child, as I have never met any male who was as strong-willed, fearless, or as kind-hearted as you, she confessed. She then placed both of her hands on the sides of his face before leaning forward and capturing his lips into hers, surprising Naruto for a few seconds before he returned the passionate kiss and wrapped his arms around her waist and placed her on his lap. Several days later, Kuriger Main Gate. Several days have passed since Nar healed and spent his time with Mei, and during that time, rumors had already spread about his relationship with Mei, their newly instated Mizukage. And surprisingly, the populace was happy for them, but was informed to keep it under wraps so other nations wouldn't find out. Also, over the last few days, Yagura managed to recover and woke up with confusion etched on his face. Mei wanted to see if what many thought were true, and if Yagura was just under a genjutsu of sorts, and to their shock, he was. And since then, the man isolated himself in the Ambu core. But when he asked who it was that stopped him and was informed that it was Mei's guardian, it was funny when the man met Nar, because Yagura was finding it very hard to believe he was bested by a 12-year-old kid. But when Mei showed him the construction site where there was a crater that was twice as big as the Sandb, and the fact that Naruto shot a Kamehameha wave into the ocean that created a tsunami wave and shook the land from the force the beam was emitting, the man was officially convinced and was thanking Kami that Nar showed him mercy, even if he wasn't in control of his actions. At the gates, a fully dressed Nar was garbed in a new outfit where he wore a pair of black training GI pants and martial arts shoes with a dark blue shirt that had a black sash wrapped around his waist and black wristbands. Picture Goku's outfit at the end of the DBZ saga when he takes Oob to Cam's lookout and also had a tan and black drawstring bag which he carried over his shoulder. Looking in front of him was Maid, to whom he had come to respect as a shinobi and fighter, as well as Chojuro, who apparently gained more courage and belief in himself, especially after seeing Naro, who was younger than him, take on the previous cage and defeat the man. But aside from that, Naruto did gain a slight shiver of terror when he felt the many lustful stares he was getting from the female populace that came to see him off, both civilian and kunoichi alike, while some of the males called him a lucky bastard for getting their attention so easily. Mei saw this and released a little killing intent on the women in order to stop their actions quickly, lest they face the wrath of an angry russet-haired female. Nar chuckled at her protective nature before turning his gaze back to Mei and lets a smirk cross his face. The woman he had no doubt loved was great to be with during his stay in Kurdaiker and during his time with her in the hospital room. They spent the time getting to know one another while getting closer to each other on a more personal level. And it was a little heart-wrenching he had to leave her for now. I guess this is goodbye for now, Mayheim. But don't worry, I will be coming back to pay you a visit, he said with a grin which Mei just matched with her own before she kissed him with the same love she had for him as he did. This seemed to get smiles from the crowd despite the age difference. Nar really looked to be around his teens in how he looked physically. They stayed like that for a few minutes and separated while leaning their heads against one another with soft smiles on their faces. Mei then placed her hand on his cheek and spoke in his ear. I'll see you soon, Narukoi. And next time we less than greater than LL share more than a kiss. She cooed in his ear seductively, which earned her a blush from the Saiyan in training while Goku and Shenron chuckled at their student. Until then, take care, Lady Mizukage, and rule well, he said as he rose into the air, waving at the crown before doing a two-handed salute and took off into the air as the people said goodbye to Naro, who disappeared into the clouds. Afterwards, an Ambu appeared beside Mei and handed her a bingo book that she opened up and turned to the page where Naruto was in his Super Saiyan form with the golden aura surrounding his body and flaring to life in a stance where he's performing the Kamehameha wave. And it reads, Name, Son Nar. I've got Nar. Use Goku's surname instead of his parents for now. The Kogen Masaru, Golden Warrior. Age 12. Occupation. Unknown abilities. Bloodline abilities are unusual at best, but is able to fire energy blasts that are as damaging as any enjutsu and ranges from being a single to multiple shot to one that is capable of rivaling if not surpassing Aari menacing ball and even powerful enough to harm a gentry in his Herbu state. Also retains the ability to fly in a similar manner like the Nadim and Sandame Suchi Kag Mu and Ryuden Bin Noon Noki Onoki of both scales, but is more versatile and move faster. Strength level is stated to be on par with that of Sununade Senju, and his speed apparently rivals that of Yandami Rakaja Yatsuki, and late Yandami Hokage Minato Namikaze possesses the ability to produce barriers made of energy that deflect incoming weapons and enjutsu-based attacks, as well as use a technique that allows him to create an invisible yet powerful force of energy that is capable of knocking down a bu or leveling a fortress with minimum effort. Is highly skilled with a bow staff and a katana. Taijutsu beyond cage level since he was able to best the Yandaime Mizukage. Genjutsu unknown. Kenjutsu cage level. Enjutsu unknown. Kyutsu unknown rank. Splash was able to defeat the Yandami Mizukage single-handedly and even fight on equal grounds with him in his Biju state. It was rumored he's punched through an enjutsu with his bare hands and feet. History unknown, but is rumored in Wave that he crushed God and his army of mercenaries and prevented him from taking over Wave country and is considered a hero of the people. Bounty unknown on-site approach with caution. May smiled at the picture and looked back up at the sky where she saw her boyfriend take off in. You are truly an enigma Naruto_. If you're this strong now, then I can't wait to see how powerful you'll be in a few years. A swellish show handsome will become with Nar said teenage Saiyan was taking a stroll in the air before sneezing and wiping his nose with his fingers. Someone must be talking about me and I bet it's Makan. Nar pondered while Goku chuckles in his mindscape. Hey Nar, I never got a chance to say how proud I am of you, especially with how you were able to handle that buju. Not only that, but also you got together with May and I got to say you are one lucky person. Nar on the other hand lets out an annoyed groan as he heard this. Ah, here we go again. Sometimes I wonder if you're a closet pervert or something, sensei. No way, Chi-Chi would beat me senseless in the afterlife if I was like that, he said frantically while his student snickered, but could help but sympathize with the man. Hey, your wife must be something else if she intimidating enough to scare you of all people, sensei. I'd love to meet her. Anyway, sensei, I've got an issue regarding my Super Saiyan form. You know how I gained it when you turned me into a full-blooded Saiyan, right? I do. And I was going to discuss that issue with you once you left Kuriaka. You see, nerd, while the Super Saiyan state makes you 50 times stronger than you'd naturally be, it also takes up a lot of energy and stamina. Thus, you won't be able to maintain the state for too long. That and it makes you more aggressive personality. Wise and slightly alters your way of fighting. I too had the same issue when I fought Frieza after he killed my best friend Krillin out of spite for nearly killing him. And I'll never forget that feeling, the insatiable rage and the way my blood boiled whenever I had that guy in my line of vision. It was like I was a whole different person. And I almost lashed out at my son once for disobeying my order to leave the fight with Piccolo. It took whatever form of my old personality I had left to stay in control, and the fact that it gave me a slightly sadistic side in that fight didn't help either. Goku explained to Nar, who mentally nodded as Goku continued. Now then, around my time when me and my friends were facing creatures known as androids who were able to go toe-to-toe with Super Saiyans like me and Vegeta, I was thinking of a way on how we could ascend to the next level. It took some time to ponder on this and I realized something that involved the first stage of a Super Saiyan. It was in a way similar to my Kaioken technique. So I came up with a theory. Like it, the Super Saiyan stage requires a lot of energy to maintain even for a second, but with a twist. The first stage makes the person a lot more aggressive and tense, forcing us to use more power than we need to. So I was trying to come up with a way on how we could maintain the stage for an extended period of time and to the point where the transformation would seem natural for us. Nar pondered on this for a second before realizing what Goku meant. Also, for one example would be like how athletes train in aerobics for extensive periods of time experience heightened states of rest with their heart and respiratory rate being much lower than that of a normal person. Right. Exactly. Because the Super Saiyan form follows a similar fundamental concept. By remaining transformed for extended periods of time, the Super Saiyan can desensitize themselves to the negative effects of the transformation. Their wild emotions are kept in check, resulting in a more strategic fighting style, and ki consumption is reduced to negligible amounts. Energy radiation is reduced in tandem, and the aura takes on a smoother flow-like appearance. By mastering the transformation, the Super Saiyan is able to retain transformation almost subconsciously. Goku answered, so, in other words, the key to this state is energy conservation rather than boosted energy output. That sounds ingenious, Goku-sensei. If I could do that, I wouldn't have to worry about wasting needless energy or having to power up more than I have to. Yep, you hit the nail right on the head, Nar, but the only problem is the amount of time it would take for you to master this state. Wait, I got it. That made Nar stop in his tracks in midair from his ancestors' excitement. What is it? Goku-sensei, Nar asked. The lookout. It's an excellent place to train at. Wait, I don't even know if the lookout is still around or if there is a guardian who's watching the earth. Hey Shenron, do you think it's still around? Goku asked the eternal dragon, who nodded. Yes, the lookout still exists since it is still in geostationary orbit in the skies of Earth and will still be around until the end of time. I would suggest that you would go there, Naruto, because the lookout is one of the best options where Naruto can train at his fullest. Shenron suggested and started to send Nar the coordinates of where the lookout was. Alright, next stop, the lookout. The lookout. Whoa, this is amazing. This place looks like a floating palace. Nar states as he lands on the platform and walks around. And whoever tends this garden has one heck of a green thumb. I've never seen any type of flora that has been taken care of this well, aside from the ones in the Yamanaka flower shop. Nar crouches down and inspects the flowers and herbs that were well kept. Why, thank you, said a deep and calm voice that made Nar jump up into the air in a surprised manner before looking down and staring at what appeared to be a dark-skinned, big-lipped, chubby male who wore a reddish-brown vest with no shirt underneath it with yellow armbands around his biceps. He wore a red sash around his waist that held a pair of white pants in place with red shoes. And he wore a type of tunic on his head with a blue gem on top, and he had his hands behind his back. Greetings, young man. How may I help you? The short man asked in a polite tone while the pine who descended back onto the ground. Oh, hi there. Sorry for intruding on your home like this. Nar apologized. No need to apologize. You're more than welcome to stay since it's been a while since I had a guest on the lookout or had someone compliment on my green thumb. Hey, it's Popo. Man, it's been so long since I saw him. And to think he's still around keeping the lookout as tidy as ever. Goku said in an excited manner. Popo. Nar asked himself. Yes, Snorts, that is my name, young man. How did you know? Mr. Popo asked. Oh, sorry. I was thinking out loud because my sensei said he knew you. Nar replied sheepishly. Oh, and who is your sensei exactly? Son Goku, or in my case Goku-sensei, since he is my ancestor and is training me to be the next guardian of the earth. Oh, and I'm Nar, by the way. Nar answered, and Popo's eyes went wide for a few seconds and smiled. Goku, the last time I saw that young man he left the planet with Shenron after defeating the Shadow Dragons. Such spirited and energetic person he was. Hop commented as he remembered how he first met Goku when he was a kid and admired his confidence and desire to protect the innocent and strong-will. So Nar, how can I be of assistance? Well, for the past 5 years after I left my home, I spent my time traveling around the nations under Goku and Shenron Sensei's guidance and honing my skill and getting stronger. And well, they mentioned that there was a place on the lookout where I could get a lot of training done easily within a few days at the very least, since I'm learning how to transform and maintain my Super Saiyan state like he and his son did. Nar explained to the Jin. I see you wish to use the hyperbolic time chamber. It is the one place where you can get a huge amount of training done easily and not having to worry about the amount of days it would take. I would be willing to give you a tour of the lookout before you start your training. Popo offered. Sure, I'd like that. Nar answered back, and followed Popo around the lookout. Needless to say, Nar was stumped when he saw how large the place looked on the outside than it did the inside. And Popo took him around the place, showing him areas like the pendulum room and teleporter, and even told him a few stories about the adventures Goku had as a kid. Afterwards, The two of them approached the door that led to the hyperbolic time chamber. To make this short, this chamber is a completely different dimension where time runs at a very slow pace, with 1 year in the chamber being equal to 1 day on the outside. Was ecstatic about this. Naturally, one could only remain in here for 2 days, but during the years, I upgraded the time to be at least around 4 to 5 days. Hop insisted as he opened the door. Everything you need is in the room, young man, and I wish you luck. Grinned at the man and nodded. Thanks, Mr. Popo, and maybe afterwards you could give me some tips on how to make my plants as green as yours, since I too have a knack for gardening. Popo chuckled at this, but nodded before Naruto walked into the room and closed the door. The hyperbolic time chamber has an entrance at its center located in a central building with 2 side wings with housing, food supplies, bathing quarters, and sleeping quarters. There is no night or day in the room, but the surroundings remain a constant bright iridescent white aurora. Its reflective floor is of undefined area, and the room's boundaries are thought to stretch to infinity in all directions, even though it appears to have a definite atmosphere, limiting its size. Man, this place seems to carry on for miles. I better be sure and not get lost, or else I'll be in trouble. So, Goku-sensei, care to give me a briefing of this place? Sure. The time dilation that occurs in the hyperbolic time chamber is 1 day of real time, which is equivalent to 1 year in the chamber, or 1 minute of real time is approximately 6 hours in the chamber. There are dual giant hourglasses of emerald sand adorning the sides of the building that count down a year within the chamber. A clock on the dome roof of the main part of the building tells the applicable time in the real world. This essentially allows for someone entering the hyperbolic time chamber to get 1 year worth of intense training in a single day. However, the gravity in the hyperbolic time chamber living area is described as being different, though it seems to not be much higher than Earth's gravity. The gravity of the training area is 10 grams, which is basically 10 times the normal gravity of your planet. But thanks to your Saiyan abilities, your body will be able to adapt to it depending on how long you reside in the current gravity. The temperature in the training area fluctuates rapidly, ranging between -40 degrees Fahrenheit, -40 degrees Celsius, and 122 degrees Fahrenheit, 50 degrees Celsius. And the air pressure is 1/4 of Earth's, which means the air here tends to grow denser the deeper one goes into the chamber. I would advise not going too far off until you've adjusted to the gravity. Goku explains to Naruto, whistled in admiration. Wow, just wow. Well, then I think I'll take an hour to relax for a while before I get started on my training, and I can get to work on improving my calligraphy for my seals, he says, and heads to the chambers to unpack. 5 days later, 5 years in the time chamber, Popo was in the process of polishing some antiques in one of the chambers of the lookout, but then paused for a few minutes and smiled. He must be done. I better go greet him. With that, the pointy-eared Jin made his way back to the area where the time chamber was. As soon as he got there, he heard the door creak open and smiles as he saw exit out of the place, but completely different. Not only did appear to be 15, but to his amazement, Naruto was now in the full-powered Super Saiyan form, but was more relaxed. His facial features exhibit less tension and ferocity than the regular Super Saiyan form, which can be explained by the mastery over the ki consumption and the emotional restlessness that the regular Super Saiyan transformation causes, and his spiked-up hair appears in a more yellowish-white fashion. Also, his clothes appeared to be torn and worn out from the intense training he went through, and his muscles were more defined, but not overly so. I must say, I'm surprised that you stayed so long in the chamber like you did, because when Goku first tried, he couldn't even stay in there for a day. Hop stated while rubbed the back of his head in a sheepish manner. What can I say? I'm gifted, Nar replied. Indeed, said another voice, and walking around the corner was what appeared to be a white-furred anthropomorphic cat with slanted eyes and had a cane. Hey kid, the cat said while Naruto blinked deliciously. Whoa, a talking cat. Say, are you a summons? Because I have an Aniki who can summon a talking dog and grandfather figure who can summon monkeys. Nar asked the cat who remained silent. Summons? No kid, I'm not. The name's Coin, an old friend of your ancestor Goku, as well as one of his past teachers. And I'm a martial arts master. Coin answered. Wait, you're Coin. Hey, sorry, but I never pictured you to be a cat. Nar said in an honest tone, while Corinne grumbled for a bit, but shrugged it off. Yeah, I get that a lot. So, I take it you spent the last 5 days in that chamber, huh? Hey, I'm beyond impressed. Goku couldn't last in there for even half a day, and the guy looked like he was going to keel over. Corinne boasted while in Naruto's mindscape. Goku was curled up in the fetal position, with a rain cloud over his head, looking glum, while Shenron chuckled at the man's childish antics. Those were the days. But anyways, I just came by to see the future protector of the planet. And I have to say, the planet's in good hands if you're this strong in this state. Thanks, Coin-san, but I'm not just getting stronger to protect just the world. Nar stated, and the cat raised a non-existent eyebrow. Oh, then what else is there, my boy? Corinne asked. I'm also doing this to protect the people I love because they are my inspiration to get stronger. Naruto answered back as the images of Kusha, Mito, Hiruzen, Kakashi, Ren, Enko, Kurini, Hana, Sum, Yugao, Tuki, and Ayame, Makoto, Sukina, and Hitomi appear in his mind. A sighted smirk formed on Kurine's face as he got his answer from Nar. Ah, yes, Goku was the same way. He may have been an oddball, but the guy had a heart of gold. Say Naruto, if you don't mind, would it be possible for me to get a small glimpse of your real power? Corinne asked the young Super Saiyan who blinked a couple of times. Are you sure? Corinne, I don't want to end up destroying the lookout from my power output. Nar asked. Yeah, just a small glimpse is all. He assured Nar, who looked a little unsure, but then nodded before getting into his power-up stance like Goku did before the Cell games. Okay, here goes. Nar squeezes his fists while an outline of a golden aura formed around his body. Ha! His aura flared out around the area. The entire lookout glowed from the output of Naruto's strength. Above the lookout, the skies darkened and lightning crackled and rumbled across the clouds. Corinne was gobsmacked at the energy output Naruto was releasing and couldn't believe it. Mansis and Leo glimpse of his power. I feel sorry for whoever makes him go all out in a fight. Corinne thought as he saw yellow electricity radiate around Naruto's glowing form before Corinne spoke up. All right, Nar, that's enough. You're gonna make the lookout fall apart, he yelled out before Naruto powered down and remained in his relaxed form. Man, that was insane. I haven't felt a power that great since Goku fought Cell back in the day. I still can't believe that was only a glimpse of your power. Not even Goku's kid was this powerful when he was your age. Hey, thanks Ken S. That means a lot coming from Goku-sensei's mentor. Naruto thanked. No problem, kid. So, I take it you're going to head back into the elementals to complete your traveling trip? Corinne asked Nar, who nodded. Well, then I think you're going to need these just in case. Corinne brought his arm around, revealing what looked like a medium-sized sack. In this bag are special beans I created called senzu beans, which I personally grew. Take one of these when you're out of gas and not only will it restore you back to full strength, but it'll keep you full for 10 days straight. he answered while tossing an astonished Nar the bag. You're serious? Was all Nar asked like a shark. Attack kid, Corrine answered. Nar remained stunned for a few minutes before snapping out of his stupor. Wow. Well, thanks. That was when Popo decided to speak up. Well then, before you leave, Nar, might I suggest getting rid of those tattered clothes first before you head out and continue your journey. Nar looked at his clothes and smiled in a sheepish manner. So, a few minutes later, Nar changed into a spar he kept in his bag and then strapped the senzu beans he got from Core to his belt and then says his goodbyes to the two and vowed to visit them whenever he got the chance. Later on, Naruto decided to take a break from training and heads over to Kamari Nunkuni, Lightning Country to check out the sights and was currently walking around the village with his pack slung over his shoulder and was biting down on a stick of dango he bought from a dango shop earlier. As he did, the young Super Saiyan was unaware of the looks he was getting from some of the civilians, especially the females, but it was mostly due to his tail waving back and forth behind him. Hey, is that a tail? Yeah, it looks like it. You think the kid is some kind of demon like the Nibi and Hachibi? Doesn't seem like it. Maybe it's some type of Kek jank. He is kind of cute. And check out the muscles on his arms. Giggle. Were most of the whispers Naruto would hear and couldn't help but chuckle inwardly before coming across a hot spring site. I might as well. I hear the hot springs here are very popular. Right now, Naruto was relaxing in one of the outdoor springs, sighing contently as the warm, soothing water worked its way on his muscles and removed the tension from them. On the other side, he could hear some of the females on the other side talking and giggling. That was when he heard a different form of giggling that wasn't female-like and was more perverted. His eyes shot open and narrowed them because from the trees was a white-haired man with binoculars sitting on a tree branch and grinning like he won the lottery. A pervert, Nar growled out and was contemplating on knocking him out of the tree with a key blast, but that would draw unnecessary attention to him, which he didn't want. But that was when a devious grin formed on Naruto's face, and he hops out of the hot springs and dashes back inside to get changed. Afterwards, said young Super Saiyan was zipping across the tree branches like a blur before hiding behind another tree and looking over his shoulder, turning his gaze onto the unaware pervert, and a glint appears in his eyes. I think I have just the technique to use on this guy, Nar says as he snickered in an evil fashion and channels a small amount of ki into his index and middle fingers and brings them together into a ram sign. Afterwards, Nar vanishes and appears behind the man and shouts, "Take this, you pervert!" Nar shouted, surprising the man who tried to turn around only for it to be in vain. Konoha Taijutsu no Ugi Sanashi Leaf Village Secret Finger Jutsu 1000 Years of Death. Nar drives his ki-enhanced fingers into the man's rectum, and sent him flying off the tree branch and lands into the women's side of the hot springs. Afterwards, Nar busted out laughing as he heard the female scream pervert and proceeded to beat the crap out of the man while Goku and Shenron chuckled in amusement. And afterwards, the blonde took off into the forest, leaving the man who was crying out for mercy at the female civilians and some kunoichi who were beating the crap out of him. Right now, Naruto was sailing over the open ocean of Lightning Country with his back turned to the water and simply staring at the sky with his hands behind his head humming before his eyes shot open and stood straight up into the air and looks around. What was that feeling? It felt similar to the chakra from the Sandy, only it's stronger, and the seems to be another one, but is even weaker than the Sandy's energy signature. He notices a speck far away. And as he used his keen sight, he noticed an island in the middle of the ocean. It's coming from that island. I wonder if it's a residence for the Beiju that live in Kamari no Kuni. Might as well check it out. With that, Naruto zips towards the unknown island. Shimagame Turtle Island. As Nar flew towards the island, It got bigger and bigger until he saw the jagged rocky edges of the large land mass. The energy signatures are stronger now that I'm so close to the island. Nar says to himself as he flew over the forest part of the island and descends towards the ground while his aura dissipates. After landing, he walks around the forest in a careful manner since he is in unknown territory. Man, this forest reminds me of the one Anko-chan showed me once when I was 6. He commented before his senses alerted him and then leapt out of the way as a large appendage swung down at the area he was formerly at. Nar landed back onto the ground in a fighting stance to see what it was that attacked him, and his eyes widened as he saw a giant gorilla roaring at him and then rearing back, beating on his chest. Whoa, now, that's something you don't see every day. Nar commented and noticed the beast growling at him and then attempt to lunge at him. Whoa, easy big guy, I'm not looking for trouble. Nar assures the gorilla, who stops his lung and stared down at Nar before getting on all fours and leaning down before the sheepish blonde. Hey, sorry for spooking you like that, buddy. Nar apologized before the giant ape blinks a few times and then sniffs Nar a few times and notices the monkey tail before scratching the top of his head in confusion. Ooh, the giant gorilla grunted out. The name's Nar. What kind of name would suit you? Nar pondered in this before smiling. I know. I'll name you Kong. What do you think? The Super Saiyan asked the now named Kong, who pondered on the name before grinning and nodding. Great Kong, it is then. Kong grunted in acknowledgement before bringing his fist forward before Nar and said blonde was confused at the gesture before realizing what he was doing. Oh, that's your sign of wanting to be friends. Nar did the same gesture before, bumping fists with the large ape, who grunts in an excited fashion until they both heard what sounded like a female screaming. What was that? Nar wondered before Kong's eyes widened and took off. Hi Kong, wait up. He cried out before leaping onto a tree branch and hopping from each one before Kong stopped in his tracks and Naruto lands before giant ape. Before their eyes was what appeared to be a female, from the looks of it was around 14 years old. She had blonde hair, and blue eyes that were cat-like with a thin slit in each of them and had a slender build. Her hair was tied into a braided ponytail, and her outfit consisted of a gray and white shirt that hugged her body with a pair of black pants and purple sandals, and strapped to her belt was a weapons pouch. And right now she was fighting a giant bear that was standing on its rear legs and bellows at her with a roar before bringing his giant paw at her. The girl manages to leap away as the paw slammed down on the area she was formerly at. She landed down and the bear rushes at her again. The female blonde gets into a fighting stance with her nails extending and turning into claws while a violet-blue chakra surrounded her form. She getting prepared to attack only for Nar to appear over the giant bear's head with his right leg raised and brings it down, delivering a falling axe kick to the bear's skull, knocking him to the ground and causing the area to tremble from the strength behind the attack. The teenage girl's eyes bugged out and her jaw dropped to the ground as she saw the mysterious blonde appear out of nowhere, who appeared to be around her age and knocked the bear out. Kong clapped his hands with glee as he saw Naruto knock the bear out while the blonde lands back on the ground with his duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Hope I didn't hit the fella too hard, he muttered before turning his attention to his fellow blonde and wave in a cheerful fashion. Yo, Nar greeted. Before she had a chance to say something, several more bears leapt out of the forest and towards Naruto, who looked up to see the large body masses descend towards his person and land on top of him. The girl's eyes widen in horror as the bears pile on the blonde until something that even she couldn't believe happened. The 7 giant bears were lifted into the air by one hand, courtesy of the golden-haired Super Saiyan. Sorry fellas, but I don't have time to sumo wrestle with you all. Nar states to the stumped bears before slowly rising into the air, causing the other two's eyes to widen to the size of dinner plate and point at him as he took off into the air. A few minutes later, Nar descended back into the area Kong and the girl were in. Hey, are you alright? Nar asked the girl who was simply sputtering and looking at him comically. Nar blinked a few times before rubbing the back of his head smiling. I take that's your first time seeing someone fly right. Said girl snapped out of her stupor and suddenly appeared in Naruto's personal space. How, in the name of Kami, did you do that? The only person who was able to knock out a giant bear of that size was my sensei and his brother. And how can you fly? Wouldn't it be better if we introduce ourselves first? Name's Sun Nar, but just call me Nar. The girl blinks a few times before smiling sheepishly. Sorry, the name's Yugo Ni. So, how did you fly anyway? She asked again, getting a sweat drop from Nar. Talk about getting straight to the point. Nar thought, well, I learned how to fly from my sensei, and trust me, it's not that easy to learn. He answered before Kong walked towards the two. Yugito then noticed a golden brown appendage swaying behind Naruto's back, which happened to be his tail, which got her attention. Is that a tail? An astonished Yugo asked Naruto, who gazed at his tail and nodded. Yeah, that's my tail, he answered back as it swayed around some more. Kawaii. Yugo squealed in her mindscape before realizing something. Wait, how did you find this island anyway? It's protected by a powerful barrier, and even if you flew here, you would have been detected by your chakra signature. She stated as she looked at Naruto in suspicious manner. Oh, this island is surrounded by a barrier because I didn't sense anything emitting from it. Plus, I didn't use chakra to fly. I used a different form of energy called Kai. Nar answered back, Kai, I've never heard of it. Is it like a Kikgang Kai? She asked. No, like chakra. It's an energy that lies deep within a person, with the difference being that Kai is more versatile and any can awaken it, unlike chakra which you have to awaken when you're at a certain age. He explained to Yu-Gi-Oh! Aside from that, the reason I'm on the island is because I sensed two powerful energy signatures coming from it, and from the looks of it, the first one is very close. Nar said as he looked around the area. Yugito, on the other hand, tenses up when she heard him say that he sensed the chakra of her tenant, the Nibi Noknako, two-tailed cat monster, and said Biju less than greater than S. Eyes widened as she realized that earlier this boy was the one responsible for that energy output she felt back when the skies darkened. That boy's power is on par with a Biju. I highly doubt that even Yugi-chan could take him on. Even if she manages to master my tailed form, Hibi might be able to inflict some damage, but even then he'd still lose. She thought, it's gone now, but I can still sense the stronger form of energy, if only slightly. Nar then looked back at Yugo before realizing something. Hold the phone, Goku-sensei. Earlier when I landed, the energy output from one of the Buju had a secondary energy signature, right? Yep, it sure did, Nar. I was able to sense the secondary output and Yugito matches it. Goku answered back, and Naruto's eyes widened since he knew what this meant. She's a gentry just like Midaken. Nar realized, say Yugo, by any chance are you a vessel? He wondered and noticed her tensing up. What makes you think I am? She asked with an edged tone in her voice before he brought his hands up. Whoa, easy. I'm not going to attack you or anything. I was just wondering because I can sense a secondary source of energy from within you. He answered back. Yugo looks at him in a skeptic manner before calming down. To answer your question, yes, I am a vessel. Why are you one as well? She asked the blonde, who shook his head. No, but someone close to me, as he answered as Mito less than greater than S image appeared in his thoughts. I see. But tell me this, Narutkin, she blushed slightly from the suffix she used before shaking it off. What are you doing on the island in the first place? This is a training ground that the ninja from Kumo use, and even then, no one less at the level of a Jonin or Anbu enters the island due to its dangers, she wondered. He was about to say something before his senses went on full alert and leapt back as a thin double-edged sword covered in lightning chakra descended past his cheek, slightly nicking the side of his face. What the? Nar wondered before a vicious clothesline to the chest sent him flying through several trees in the forest. Ryato, lariat, the figure cried out and it landed in front of a surprised Yu-Gi-Oh! The person had dark skin and a muscular build as well as blonde white hair and a goatee. On his right shoulder, he has a tattoo of the kanji for Iron Ji Tetsu. And on his left cheek, he has a tattoo of a bull's horn. His top lip also has a slightly darker hue than his bottom one. Over his eyes were a pair of oval-shaped sunglasses and a white-colled forehead protector, and wore a one-strap over one shoulder flak jacket, a long red rope belt tied around his waist, standard hand and chinoiards, shinobi sandals, and a white scarf around his neck, as well as carried 7 swords on his back. Take that, Surugaki monkey brat, for no one on assaults the dashi of the all-powerful Hibi Gentriki Kurabi. He Hiller B rapped as he raised his right arm up, doing a hand gesture where his index and pinky finger stuck out in a horn fashion while his middle and ring finger as well as his thumb were curled up in his palm. Yugito managed to snap out of her stupor and then drop kicks the man in the back of his head but doesn't budge from it. Kurabi-sensei Yubaka, what is wrong with you? Said man turned his head at his mad apprentice with a confused expression on his face. What's the deal, yo? He asked while Yugito less than greater than brow twitched. What's the deal? You attacked Naruken for no apparent reason. Do you ever think before you act? Shed yelled at the man who simply scratched his chin with his index finger. Who the hell is Naru? 2HH. He was cut off from his sentence due to the fact that he was struck across the face by a duffel bag and lands on his back. I'm Nar, the Super Saiyan answered as he walked out of the forest completely unharmed, twirling the man's blade in his hand. What the hell's your problem? You just don't go around attacking people for no apparent reason, you bull-headed jerk. Yuo, on the other hand, sweat dropped at his response, as did Nibi. Nar then simply flicked the blade, which landed beside Kurabi with the blade embedded on the ground. Nice sword, by the way. Whoever forged it was incredibly skilled and sharpened the blade's edges to the point where it could easily cut through stone. Yugito's sweat drop grew as he said that. Is he serious? Sensei just lariats him through several trees and he walks out of it without a bruise or scratch on him. She thought. B on the other hand sat up, rubbing the left side of his face. Ow, I actually felt that. Yo, he threw that bag with just raw strength. This kid is no pushover. Kurabi yelled, thought while the Hibi snorted. No Baka. If could do that with a simple bag, imagine what he could do if he had thrown a tree at you. The hybrid-tailed beast commented, my bad, yo. Didn't know if you were a friend or foe, and big bro would have my head if anything had happened to our niece Yugito. Kurabi apologized as he dusted his pants off, not noticing the tick mark appearing on Yugito's head. Nar blinked solicitously for a few seconds, as did his teachers. He's an odd one, Shenron commented while Goku chuckles. I'll say he kind of reminds me of the Grand Kai minus being old and all. Goku replied, and they witnessed the man approaching Nar and brought his fist forward with a grin on his face. So are ye cool, ya fool? Kurabi asked. Nar noticed the gesture was the same one Kong used earlier and then brought his fist forward as well, and they both tapped knuckles. Yeah, we're cool. So you must contain the stronger of the two Buju, since you did mention the Hibi, right? Nar asked the shade-swearing sword user, who nodded with a proud grin on his face. That's right. Yo, me and the dynamic duo of Kumo. He states, not noticing Yuto, who was slumping her shoulders and hanging her head in defeat. Why, Kami, why do you torment me so? It's less than greater than bad enough having a short-tempered uncle, but a rapping one at that, she thought with anime tears streaming down her face. The oxycephalopod on the other hand was banging his head on the floor repeatedly. Make the rapping stop. The ape tails wailed in the man's train of thought. Nar on the other hand simply rubbed the back of his head in confusion and wonder due to the fact that he always ended up meeting the strangest people in his travels. So after that little event, Kurobe decided to head back to his vacation home in the forest. And welcome Naruto to stay as his guest until he decided to leave. A week later, Nar was in the middle of the forest, meditating in the lotus style while Kong was snoring a few feet away from him. He remained calm and relaxed in his state. And that was when Yugito leapt out of the trees and landed in front of him. She frowned when she noticed that he didn't jump out of his state in surprise and huffs before sitting cross-legged in front of him with her arms folded. Said Saiyan was chuckling inwardly as he knew the vessel of the two-tailed Nor, but sadly nothing worked. Despite that, throughout the week, Naruto and Yugito got to know each other, but only on a friendship level, even though she would blush a little due to the fact that she saw him exercising without a shirt on, and was even shocked beyond belief when she saw him easily out-wrestle the giant animals of the forest, especially when he encountered Kong's father, King. The one person that intrigued Nar the most was mostly Kurobe. Despite his antics, Kurobe was a very powerful ninja, even when he didn't use his partner's powers improved by sumo wrestling several bears simultaneously and come out on top. But what impressed Nar the most was the man's sword style, which consisted of him using several swords that were interlocked around the most bizarre parts of his body. But despite that, he was still able to use this form in a mixture of a defensive and offensive pattern that was extremely unpredictable. He also learned that Yugito was learning how to fully synchronize with the Nibi in order to use her power at the fullest by not only conquering her dark side and negative feelings but also facing Nibi in her mindscape. Kurobe had to go through the same situation with the Hibi and in the end succeeded and therefore had developed a partner for life. Nar was wondering if it would be possible for Mito to harness the abilities of the Vixen on this island, but decided to save that for later. Kurobe, on the other hand, was beyond impressed with the Super Saiyan in both his skills and personality, and had to admit Naruto was a very intriguing person. What impressed the man the most was his physical strength and his speed. As he had also seen Nar outmatch the animals in the forest in terms of raw strength rather easily and knew he wasn't using chakra to supplement his strength. He knew from the way Nar carried himself that he must have trained extremely hard to gain his current level of speed and strength and wondered between him and his brother who would be the better. So after seeing him train in using 10-ton weights with little effort, he decided that he was going to test the kid's skill out by the end of the week. Are you sure you want to go through with that bee? Hibi asked his enthusiastic vessel who was sitting on his muzzle. You bet. Yo. Kurobe answered back. I figure you would. Yabaka. He muttered. Though you have to admit, something about that kid is off, especially his level of strength. Kurobe raised a brow from behind his shades and looks down at the hybrid. Such as Kurobe wondered his energy for one thing. It is similar to chakra but isn't either. It's a lot more free-flowing and can actually be seen. Human chakra cannot be seen unless it's condensed into a physical form like the Yandime Rinnegan or the chakra cloak of a vessel. From what I theorize, he's using a more advanced form of energy. It continues to grow the more he trains. Hachibi explained to the rapping ninja. Well, when you put it that way, the kid's energy signature is odd. But hey, the killer bee is ready for anything. Oh yeah, he stated while Hachibi's sweat drops. If I'm lucky, the Gaki will kill us by accident and I'll be free from this Baka and his Anka. The hybrid thought and prayed. The next day, A flabbergasted Yu-Gi-Oh was looking at Nar like he had lost his mind. The reason for that is because her sensei Killer Bee had Nar to a one-on-one fight so that he could measure up the blonde's skills, which Nar agreed upon instantly due to the fact that he would get to face someone who was possibly even stronger than Yagura was. Nar, are you nuts? You actually want to fight Kurabi-sensei? Do you want to die? She asked frantically while the young Super Saiyan was doing a few stretches. We're less than greater than just having a simple spar, Yugo-chan. Besides, if I ever want to get better, I have to face stronger opponents. He stated as he did a few one-armed handstand push-ups. Yugo, on the other hand, still didn't look convinced, but he's the strongest ninja in Kumo, second to his brother, and that's even when he doesn't use the power of the Hibi. She tried to get through to him. Really? Wow. He must be a real powerhouse then if he doesn't rely on the power of his BU. Nar wondered before a grin formed on his face. I can't less than greater than T wait to face him and the Hibi. Hopefully, I'll have to actually try then when I face the Sanbi. He hoped, unaware that Yugito less than greater than S eyes bugged out when she heard him say he fought and defeated the three-tailed turtle. You beat a Buju. No way, she shouted in disbelief. No lie, Yugito-chan. I fought the Sandy and the vessel and beat them both, he said in an honest tone while rolling his right arm clockwise. Yugito, on the other hand, blinked a few times and could tell by the look in his eyes that he was telling the truth. So, do you think you could beat the Hibi? She questioned the young Super Saiyan who was doing a few arm stretches and relaxes his posture. He thinks about it for a few seconds and simply shrugs. Honestly, I don't know. He answered back. To the female blonde. I mean, Sanvi was the only Buju I've fought so far, and I have no idea how strong the Hibi is, but I'm pretty sure he's no pushover, especially if B is his container. Nar then smiled sheepishly and looked up the sky. But I'm pretty positive I'll have some difficulty fighting the guy. But hey, if he is stronger than me, that just means I'll just have to up my training then. Yugito was stumped at how jovial Naruto was acting. Anyone who could go toe-to-toe with Aiju and live would have boasted about it. But Naruto was entirely different. She knew firsthand that Nar was stronger than her even when they spared during the week. But despite that, Nar would only encourage her to spar with him more and even complimented her on her progress. Besides, everyone loses in a fight every now and then. So, if your sensei does beat me, then it's no big deal. He answered back with a smile on his face. Yugito couldn't help but blink gleefully at Nar before smiling. You know what? You're okay in my book, Naruto-kun. I mean, most guys would brag about beating either me or Kurabi-sensei, but you are truly a humble person, she said and lightly punches him in the shoulder. Thanks. Say your sensei said to meet him in the open field, right? Nar asked the female blonde who nodded. Awesome. Let's less than greater than meet him there. He turns around and Yugito jumps on his back, wrapping her arms around his neck and her legs around her waist before he takes off into the air with her squealing in joy. Meanwhile, Killer Bee was standing in the middle of the field with his arms folded, waiting for Nar before looking up and sees Nar landing on the ground with a giggling Yugo on his back. That was awesome. Let's go again. An excited Nibi cheered while Yu-Gi-Oh hopped off Naruto's back. Thanks for the lift, Naruto-kun. No matter how many times I go through this, I just love flying. The blonde Jingguri said in an excited tone. Nar smiled back and then turned his attention to B. Sobi-san, you ready to rumble? Nar asked, and his answer was the darkened man grinning and getting into a wrestling stance. Bring it, Surugaki Killer Bee challenge, and Nar got into his fighting stance as well. The two stared off for a while waiting for the first person to make the first move. Nar shifts his feet and flexes his fingers while B did the same. Yugito watched the scene and could feel the pressure emitting from the air and couldn't help but feel excited about the battle that was about to start. Both fighters were focused, leaving no form of doubt in their eyes. The staring match ended when B grinned and the two suddenly vanished in a blur of speed. Yugito's eyes widened at what happened before hearing a collision occur. She saw both Nar and B in a grappling match with each one trying to overpower the other with raw strength. Both were gritting their teeth as their muscles flexed from the battle of strength. B noticed that his heels were digging into the ground as Naruto started to slowly push him back. What the he's actually pushing Sensei back? A bewildered Yugo thought. Killer B grits his teeth as he tries to stop, but then he rears his head back. Headed ode headbutt. He swung his head forward at Nar, who reacted by letting go of B's hands and flipping over him, causing the man to miss and ends up getting struck in the back of the head by Nar foot. Said Saiyan flips in midair and lands back on the ground while Killer B stumbled forward a few times before stopping and rubs the back of his head, turning his gaze at Nar, who was in the same fighting stance like the one Goku uses, with a smirk on his face. Looks like I landed the first hit, Nar stated, getting a smirk from B. He held back on that kick. Had he added a little more force, I'd be in La La Land, the rapper thought before vanishing in a burst of speed. Nar leaned backwards as B attempts to lure him by surprise, and he spins around in order to deliver a reversal roundhouse kick at the Saiyan's head, only for it to phase through Nar. He raised a brow at this before he ducked as Nar flies over him with a flying drop kick before landing back onto the ground again. Yugito was now wide-eyed at what happened. Whoa. Earlier, he moved at a level of speed so great he left an after image and I didn't even see his body movement. She whispered to herself, he's so fast. I'll say only your uncle was capable of moving at such speed. And the same went for the Yandai Hokage Minato. After he passed on, I became known as the fastest ninja alive. Sure may have attained the speed to keep up with him, but A is still faster than him. Nibi explained to her vessel. But there is something different about him. Something not of this world. She narrows her eyes in curiosity, wondering about Naruto's scent, which wasn't human at all, nor did he smell like a demon. Nar then proceeded to sprint towards Killer B at an astonishing speed, surprising the man at how fast he was moving. He was about to meet Naruto's charge only for the teenager to phase through him again. What's with all the running, yo? Are we going to get our fight on or run a marathon? He asked out loud as he looked around for Nar, but stopped as he felt something land on top of his head. I'm up here, big guy, Nar replied with a grin on his face. B's brow twitched due to the fact that Nar was using his head as a stool. Not cool, yo. Using my head as a stool, he shouted. B attempts to grab Naruto, who vanished once again and appeared in front of B's unprotected form with his arm cocked back and drove it into the man's torso. Yugito less than greater than S eyes widened as she saw him land a blow on the Kumnin's frozen form with a focused look on his face. Bad move, Killer B-san, leaving yourself open like that. Nar chastised in a serious voice while pulling his fist out. While B didn't show, he was screaming out on the inside at the punch Nar delivered. And the only show of reaction was a bead of sweat falling from his brow. Oh, sweet Cammy, that hurt. It feels like Big Bro just punched me in the gut just now. Yo, he wailed in his mindscape. Stop your belly aching, B. Hibby chastised before snickering at the jab he used, much to be less than greater than S irritation before getting serious. You should be thankful for your body's tolerance and durability level, because any other ninja, Gentriki or not, would have keeled over from a punch of that magnitude. Besides, the Gaki held back on that punch, and for a good reason. That doesn't make me feel any better. Yo, My insides feel like jello and my bones are rattling. And last I checked, they don't do that. He stopped his ranting on pondered on something before grinning. Maybe I should stop fooling around and show the Gaki the 8 sword. Hibi, on the other hand, nods in agreement with B. I agree. We don't know the magnitude of this boy's power, especially if he was able to beat the vessel of the Sanbi so easily. The hybrid theorized. I would advise using version 2 of your cloak form if you want to at least land a decent hit on him. Killer grunted in agreement before exiting his mindscape. Right now, he let out a breath of air while lightly patting his stomach form. The punch Naruto delivered. I have to say, yo, that was a sweet move you did there. No one short form my brother has ever hit me that hard before. He praised before a serious expression formed on his face. Playtime's over. Nar, you're about to get a first-hand experience against the 8 sword. Yugo gasps when she heard this and now was worried. He's going to use that against Nar. What is he thinking? B on the other hand, grinned as a reddish-brown like chakra started to form around his body. Get ready for the fight of your life, Gaki, because I'm about to release the 8 sword, he declared. Nar watched as a chakra cloak erupted around the man who was grinning while 8 chakra tails swayed behind him. Naruto's eyes widened as he felt the chakra levels this man possessed. Whoa, he's even stronger than Yagura is in that form. And if his first version is this strong, he watched as the tails formed around him, turning into a dome of chakra before erupting into a burst of energy and was now in his version 2 form. The version 2 chakra cloak is much darker than version 1 because in this form B was more muscular and the chakra was reddish-brown. 2 horns protruded from his head with a black face-like structure, and his eyes glow an eerie white color as did his mouth. Behold the 8th sword of the Hibi Jinchuriki. Wikurabi roared, releasing a shock wave so powerful that it scattered dust and rocks everywhere. Nar brought an arm up in order to protect his face from the debris. Incredible. His roar alone is powerful enough to cause this much damage. I might have to use more power than I first thought. Nar thought as the dust settled. Killer B raised his arms in the air for a few seconds before bringing them down hard. The ground underneath them started to rumble, resulting in a crater spreading outwards. Nar looks down as he saw the earth under his feet cracks and leaps away as it rose up and exploded, revealing a pair of dark brown-red arms. Hai smirks in a creepy fashion as another arm sprouted from the right arm and descends toward him. Nar lands on the ground and vanished as the extra arms hit the ground before it rises up again and tries to attack him in a repeated process. He then skids back while forming a yellow ball of ki in his right hand as the hand descends towards him. Nar throws the energy ball at the hand and when it made contact, a small explosion occurred, destroying the chakra arm. His senses went on high alert and dodged a horizontal slash to his chest and somersaults over Kurabi, who spins around and launches his 8 tails at the Saiyan. He evades several tail swipes and stabs with his impressive agility and reflexes before landing on the ground and leaping backwards several feet, surprising B. Don't think that running away will help you, Gaki, he stated before charging at Nar. Nar, on the other hand, smirks. Who said I was running? He said as he turned around and got into an odd stance. He sways his arms around his body while he produces a blue flame-like aura. And then he draws his hands out to his sides and closes them into fists as he crosses his arms on his chest. Let's see how you handle this thunder flash attack. Nar draws his fists together in front of him and fires a huge storm of flames at the transformed ninja. Yugito's eyes widened when she watches the attack travel through the field, scorching the earth and grass with the heat alone. Killer B skids to a halt with a gob-macked expression on his face as he saw the attack come upon him in Tegra accuracy. Holy _ too late to dodge or counter. He screamed before he was engulfed by the attack. The flames shot outwards around the area before dissipating and leaving waves of smoke that rose from the area the Shade's wearing wrapper was at. When it cleared, it revealed Kurabi, who was sprawled out on the ground but with singes on his clothes and some burn marks on places. Like his arms, legs, etc. before his healing factor started to slowly heal him. Yugito less than greater than, S jaw hung downwards as she saw the damage the technique did not only to her uncle but to the surrounding area. Whoa, what an attack! She whispered in awe while Nibi nodded in her mindscape in agreement. Nar on the other hand was impressed and watched Killer Bee slowly get back on his feet while healing and whistled lowly. Wow, this guy is resilient. From what I can tell, his cloak took at least half of the damage from the technique sensei taught me. If it were the other way, he'd be in serious trouble, even with his boo healing his body. He summarized, though in reality, Naruto actually held back a lot on that technique because he didn't really want to damage to forest that was at the edge of the field. Goku, on the other hand, was impressed with how Naruto was able to control the Thunder Flash technique he learned from Pion to such a level, which proved that Naruto's control in his ki has improved a lot since their training in the hyperbolic time chamber. B got up panting slightly from the attack with a smile on his face. Despite how the fight was going, he helped but be thrilled to fight some who could actually make him fight more than he usually did. Hey, the Gaki is awesome. No one short of my brother has ever made me go this far. And that technique was off the chain. Were it not for version 2, I'd be in real pain. I can't believe he made you revert back in your current form with that technique. B. You're going to need to fully transform if we want to actually get a decent hit on the tailed Gaki. And whatever you do, don't let him hit you with that move, otherwise you'll get roasted. Hibi warned his vessel and got a mental nod from Killer Bee, who finally manages to fully heal. Say no more 80 because the time for playing is over. Yo, he cried out before turning his attention to Naruto, who was blinking in confusion as the man pointed to him with a grin on his face. Your victory I will negate. From his back 8 tentacles slowly sprouted out and enlarged. With my transformation I will eradicate. His body started to shift and ripple before a cloud of smoke formed around. Matu transformation will be your plight as the power of the Hibi will unleash its might. The smoke erupted outward, and when it cleared it revealed the true form of the Hibi no Yu 8-tailed Gain Ox. The Beiju had 4 long horns on its head similar to that of a Jacob sheep. The lower left part of one of its horn was permanently sliced off in a battle with and his father. It also has a muscular upper body structure with a hunched back similar to an American bison, arms with spiked protrusions on the elbows and hands with opposable thumbs like that of a human. It has no hind legs, but instead its lower half is made up of its tails, which consist of 8 tentacles that resemble the cephalopod arms of an octopus. Nar gaped as he stared at the gargantuan form of the creature before him that snorted steam from its muzzle. It wasn't the size that got to him. It was the unbelievable amount of chakra this force of nature possessed. Kami, his chakra levels are unbelievable. The Sandy doesn't even compare to this guy, he muttered before a smile filled with excitement and thrill formed on his lips. Hahi, this might prove to be a challenge for me, Nar said as his eyes shined in excitement. Yugito was on a rock texture and didn't look as thrilled as Nar did. That Baka Uncle A warned him about transforming into his final form. But B would be the type to ignore his warnings even if he used the iron claw on him. She turned her gaze to Nar, who was standing before the behemoth with a worried expression on his face. Be careful, Naruto. I don't know how strong you really are, but in this form, Sensei is unstoppable. Get ready for the thrashing of a lifetime. Gaki, I'll send you packing and crying for the Shinigami. He bellowed before raising his arm up and swinging down at Nar said. Saiyan vanished in a burst of speed while the fist smashed into the ground and he appeared beside the beast's face with his fist reared back only to go sailing as a blur struck him from behind and sent him flying backwards in the air a few feet before stopping himself and rubs his back. "Ow man, that smarts," Nar complained and shook the throbbing sensation off. "I guess those tentacles aren't for show after all. He's not only bigger, but his speed isn't even affected at the least." With that, Nar flies at the transformed killer bee, who howled back and fires several globs of black ink with electricity arching around it, forcing Nar to evade several of them and notice the electricity. "Oh man, I better not get hit by any of those." Another one sails towards him and Nar fires an energy blast. When they make contact, they explode on collision. Nar suddenly appears above Hibby's head with an energy ball in his hand and fires it. The hybrid sees it and swats it to the side, and Nar uses the distraction to appear under its jaw and attempt to uppercut the beast in the jaw, but had to dodge another tentacle that attempts to smash him into the ground and appears once more while another one attempts to hit him. Nar maneuvers over it with his hands raised over his head with the palms facing the target and one hand in front of the other with the fingers going in opposite directions. "Masenko ha!" he cried out while thrusting his arms forward releasing a yellow beam of energy. Hachibi brings an arm up and blocks it with one hand and grunts from the strength behind it. Nar narrows his eyes and pushes more energy into the attack, making it slightly bigger. B grunts as he tries to stay his ground, but feels himself getting pushed back from the attack and is forced to use both palms in order to stand his ground. The young Saiyan once again adds more power behind it and the beam grows in width. GRB snorts in frustration as he felt himself getting pushed back even more. Using his newfound strength, he pushes his arms upwards, releasing the attack into the air where it explodes into a flash of light before disappearing. "Nice try, little money, but it'll take more than that to knock down the great." He didn't get to finish his sentence because Nar landed on his muzzle with a grin on his face. "Here's light in your eyes," he called out. Nar brought his hands close to the center of his face with the fingers spread toward his eyes. Solar flare. Suddenly, a blinding white light flashes outwards and surrounds both Naruto and B. Yugo saw it spreading out and covers her face with her hands as the light shined brightly. When it dies down, B was clutching his eyes and howling in pain. "Eaaah. My eyes. My eyes." He wailed out as he thrashed around with his tentacles, smashing the ground and shaking the earth. "Ha!" Nar descended from the air and delivers a bone-shattering axe kick that impacts with the beast's skull, putting him in a daze and stumbles. He then spins and hit him in the side of the jaw with a reversal roundhouse kick and B ends up spitting out saliva. Nar then vanished and appeared next to one of the thrashing tentacles and grabs it. He then starts to rise into the air, pulling on the large appendage and starts to lift Beto into the air. Nar grit his teeth and flies up even harder with his opponent. B on the other hand gets his vision back and realizes that he's rising in the air. "Yo 80, I didn't know you could fly. Yo." This caused a tick mark to form on the hybrid's horned head. "Baka, I can't fly. The Gaki is lifting us into the air." Hachibi roared. The transformed bee snapped out of his stupor and realized that he was being lifted into the air by Nar, who then stopped and his aura flared to life. He started to grunt slightly as he pulled back and started to spin the guy slowly around the air by his tentacle before the speed increased. As the pace increased, he ended up creating a twister around them for a while before swinging his opponent upward into the air, resulting in B flailing his arms and tentacle as he ascended into the air. "Akami, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to throw up and then I'm going to die," he cried out. Nar then appeared over the flailing ninja. B looked up to see Nar with his fist reared back and electricity arcing around his arm. "Oh, this is going to hurt like hell," B muttered. Nar then swung forward and delivered a powerful punch on B's jaw, causing the entire area around them to shake violently while B went free, falling down to the unforgiving ground at high speeds. As he made contact, dust erupted from the ground, forming in a mushroom-like shape, and the entire area shook violently from the aftershock. Yugito was struggling to keep her footing as the earth shook underneath her feet and flailed her arms around frantically. For goodness sake, can this get any more violent? If this keep up, they're going to split the island apart. She yelled out before tripping and falling on the ground face first. This action caused Nibby to laugh her off at the action. "Shut up. It's not funny," she screamed mentally as she got up and rubbed her injured nose. As the dust settled down, Nar descended downwards, landing on the ground softly while B was covered in rubble. "Man, I hope that fall didn't kill him. Maybe I went to hide when I carried him off." He pondered until the ground started to rumble. Nar turned his head in the direction where the 20 feet wide and deep crater was. B in his Biju form rose up roaring at the sky. Raah bellowed before slamming his fists into the ground on the cracks. "Do you think I'll let you get away with that, brat? I'm going to stomp a hole in your head for this grow." He opened his mouth widely, which got the attention of the Saiyan. Black chakra started to form into a large sphere before compressing into a smaller shape. As Yugo got back up, she felt a large amount of chakra being created and her eyes widened in horror. "No, sensei, you're going too far," she whispered before looking around for cover. And the closest thing was a trench. She made a mad dash for it and dived into it. Nar watched as his foe was gathering chakra in curiosity. "Nar, don't let that attack hit you. The power in that move is of the charts. Don't get caught in its range." Goku screamed to his student, whose eyes widened as the hybrid reared its head back. "Crap, I don't have enough time to get out of the range," he screamed as his foe shot his head forward. No choice. Naruto's golden aura flared to life as B fires a concentrated beam of energy which then engulfed the young Super Saiyan. The beam shot through the area before the beam widened and then an explosion occurred erupting outwards and the whole island was shaking violently. Yugito was curled up in the trench as the shaking rocked the island while a large cloud of dust rose in the air. Once it died down, the effect from the Amari menacing ball resulted in a wide and extremely deep trench stretching outwards in a straight line leading from the field to the forest area where a 40-foot wide and 20 deep created form with dust still rising. From it, the blonde Kunoichi popped her head out of the trek she was behind and her eyes widened from the results and stared at the dust cloud rising from the forest area. "No, Naruto-king," she trembled, fearing for the worst, while tears brimmed around her eyes, praying that he wasn't dead. Nibby remained silent before her vessel, who was trembling before her senses picked something up and her eyes widened. Kitten, he's still alive," she shouted to her vessel, snapping Yugo out of her stupor. He is. Where?" she asked the two-tailed cat and looked around. "In the dust cloud." "He's alive and well," she assured the 14-year-old. "Focus your eyesight there." Her slit pupils dilated as she focused on the sight and saw a shadow figure in the dust cloud. It then cleared and revealed Nar surrounded by some type of golden energy dome with his arms crossed in axe formation. There didn't appear to be any damage aside from a few scratches and bruises, and aside from that, his clothes were torn up. Half of his shirt was missing and he had several holes and rips in his pants, but other than that, there was no other serious damage. He's alive. I'm going to kick his for worrying me like that," she screamed mentally while Nibby chuckled. Meanwhile, Nar uncrossed his arms and let out a sigh of relief. Man, that was too close for comfort. It's a good thing I set this barrier up in the last second because if I hadn't, I'd be in real trouble, he commented as the barrier vanished. I'll say I can't tell you how many times I've cut it close in life or death situations. The worst I've been through was narrowly escaping an exploding planet, Goku said to his protege. I think it's time to get a little payback. Let's see how he handles a super Kamehameha. Naruto's aura flared to life before getting into the stance. He gathers around Naruto's palms. But the difference in this one is that it was light blue and generated more light. B on the other hand snorts as he saw Naruto in the air over the large crater. So the Gaki survived after all. That's good. Otherwise, Yugo-chan would have turned me into a scratching post. Yeah, that was when he saw the blonde generating an odd light. See me. Ha, me. His aura rockets upwards as he added more energy into the attack before thrusting his hands forwards. Ha, he screamed out as he fired. A powerful light blue beam of energy that was twice as large as a normal Kamehameha was released, emitting a glow around the area as it descended towards the transformed B. B saw the glowing blue light descend towards him. As he looked at the blue light in awe, his eyes widened when he realized that it was an attack and its size rivaled the form of the hybrids. Was all he could say before the blast engulfed him and exploded into a blue dome of energy that covered his entire form. Nar descends towards the smoking crater he created with the super Kamehameha wave that he fired at Beiju form. Oh man, I think I overdid that a little. I was aiming to knock him out, not kill him, he said as he landed on the ground with a concerned look on his face and dashes towards the crater. Don't worry, Nar, I can still feel B's life force as well as the Hibis. It would appear that his partner's form took most of the brute force from that attack. Goku assured his apprentice, who also sensed the man's energy signature and size in relief. He then hops into the crater and skids down the rocks before skidding to a halt. The smoke cleared, revealing B's tattered and smoking form, and the man was in a daze. Now that attack was the shit, B said in a dazed tone, resulting in Naruto's sweat dropping and chuckling. He then slowly helped Killer B up and hoists the man over his shoulder, rising into the air and out of the crater. As he left it, he carefully placed the wrapping Jinchuriki onto the ground and reaches into his sash for something. Yugo came running towards them and stops beside Naruto with a worried look on her face. Is he going to be okay? She asked the young Super Saiyan and got a nod. Yeah, he's just a little shaken up, Yugo-chan. He assured the girl, and he managed to pull out a bag that seemed to be filled with something. He shuffled his finger through the bag and pulls out a senzu bean. I don't think a chakra pill is going to help him, Yugito stated and received a chuckle from the blonde who inserted the bean into Killer B's mouth. What makes you think it is a chakra pill? Nar asked. Yugito blinked a few times and was about to speak but stopped when she heard her second uncle chow down on the bean and gulps it down. There a pause of silence for a few minutes until B's brows rose up and he instantly flips back on his feet with a grin on his face. Look like I caught my second wind and I feel like I can take on 1,000 men. Oh yeah, B cried out, pumping his fist into the air. Yugo had a look of astonishment on her face and looks back at a grinning Naruto. How was all she could say to the young Saiyan. These aren't chakra pills, Yugo. They're beams, but they are a special and rare variety that possess special properties which restore a person's full strength and also heals any injuries they've gotten. He answered back as he put the sack back into his sash. Killer B, on the other hand, was inspecting the damage around the area and whistled lowly. Man, Big Bro is going to flip when he sees this, he mumbled. Yeah, we did do quite a lot of damage on the field, huh? Nar replied with a sheepish grin on his face. Quite. The place looks like a war zone. Yugo screamed in her mindscape. Glad that wasn't as because that attack would have done more than scorched my fur if it hit. Nibi informed her student. Speak for yourself, Matabi. That attack hurt like a underscore, Hibi roared telepathically to his fellow Buju. I've had my fair share of brutal attacks in the past, but that one takes the cake. I haven't been hit this hard since I got in that fight with Kuramame, female Q, B's name people too. Centuries ago. Suck it up, Gooey. You only got your handed to you because you called her a underscore, who needed to get her ego checked. She remarked with a snicker while the hybrid snorted and mumbled about hot-headed vixens needing attitude adjustments. Well, let's call it a day. Grab some grub and hit the hay, B said, letting out a yawn and cracks his neck before heading into the direction of where his vacation home was. Yugo, on the other hand, sighed in annoyance and folds her arms over her chest. He can be such a pain sometimes. I'm surprised Uncle A hasn't killed him yet for his bad rapping, she remarked and got a chuckle from Nar. True, but at least he's lively in some way or form. Plus, normally is overrated anyway, and I'm used to meeting people like B. I would bet my tail that somewhere out there is a super pervert, a lady who's a chronic drunk and sucks at gambling, and a guy with a creepy fetish for odd abilities and little boys, he stated, resulting in 3 legendary ninjas sneezing at the same time and the outcome being one was being beaten to death by women in the hot springs, the other winning the lottery, and the last person chuckling in an eerie fashion that sent shivers down everyone's spine. Goku and Shenron sweat drop from Naruto's odd prediction. Your future successor is an odd one, Goku. If only he knew how true his prediction was. The immortal dragon states, getting a nod of agreement from Goku. Anyway, let's head back. Yugito-chan, Nar stated, and that was when she leapt onto his back. Wrapping her arms around his neck and legs around his waist, grinning in an excited manner. He then took off into the air with his passenger screaming in delight and heading to the house, telling him to go faster. B looked up and dropped his jaw as he saw his niece on Naruto's back flying over him. That's not fair. The monkey can fly, but I'm grounded. I feel a tear coming to my eye. He wed before taking off like a blur across the field, leaving a trail of dust behind. B's vacation home. Nar gently lands on the ground with Yugito on his back and she hops off his back with a giddy expression on her face. Killer B landed before them panting slightly and regains his breath. What I wouldn't give to fly yo, he muttered before a grin formed on his face. Aside from that great match, Nar, that was one hell of a thrash you gave me. I haven't been a situation like that since I faced the yellow flash. Naruto's brows rose up when he heard that you fought against Minato Namikaze before B nodded at his answer while folding his arms over his chest. Yeah, during the last war and that guy was a pro in terms of speed, but from what I can see now, I think you'd have him matched in that department, though I believe you were holding back when we spared. He noticed Naruto's eyes widening at the statement, but the man merely smirks. So, you noticed, huh? Yeah, I did hold back, but mainly for your safety because, believe it or not, I'm a lot stronger than I appear to be since my bloodline trait enables to me to grow stronger every time I train or fight someone stronger than me. Nar explained to them, but how do you keep it under control? Yugo asked curiously. Nar responds by clapping his hands together, causing an golden aura outline to form around his body. And then several odd seals appeared around his arms, chest, torso, and legs. Gravity and suppression seals. I mainly use them as limiters to suppress my real strength so that I could enjoy fighting strong opponents. He answered to the vessel of Matabi with a sheepish smile while the seals faded back into his body. Wow. So, how much weight are you currently carrying on yourself? Yugo wondered as did B. How much? Well, when I started training, I wore a 20-ton turtle shell on my person since I was 7 and every now and then the weight was doubled. He answered only to see their jaws drop to the ground and shoulders slump while Matabi and Guyuki did the same. Say what? The two Beiju screamed out. B was the first to snap out of his stupor and speak out. That's practically 200 tons you've been training in Surugaki. Did you train under Kami? The rapper questioned. And they say Uncle A was a trainholic. But he's going nothing on Narutkin. Yugito thought with her vessel nodding in agreement while the teenage Saiyan rubs the back of his head sheepishly. Well, kind of, he answered, getting a chuckle from both Goku and Shenron. So, if I could ask B, does this island in peculiar have a connection with the Beiju? B raised an eyebrow, but nodded. Yes, due to some the ruins that have the hieroglyphics of the Beiju and their vessels. It explains that the vessel and the Beiju must be in sync if they ever wish to unleash their true power. But to do so, one must face their inner darkness. One must face their inner darkness. Nar repeated and pondered on the riddle. Any idea on this, sensei? Goku pondered on this too, rubbing his chin in thought at Yugito's explanation and what it meant. One must face their inner darkness. From what I would guess, I think she means face that part of you that's affiliated with negative emotions such as anger, rage, envy, jealousy, hate, and other negative feelings which would manifest into a physical form based off these feelings. He explained to his apprentice. Nar broke out of his thoughts and spoke up. So, what you're saying, Yugi-chan, is that the person must defeat the part of them that represents their negative emotions, right? Yugito nodded positively at the teenage Saiyan's answer. So, basically, anyone can go through this trial even if they aren't vessels, right? Again, she nodded at his answer. Yes, regular people can go through the trial since doing so isn't forbidden. But if you are weak-willed and your negative emotions take over, then she paused at her answer and a grim expression formed on her face. I see. Nar thought about her explanation and wondered if he too had a darker side. He knew good and well everyone had a light and a dark side since no one was born absolutely good or evil. But if the person's emotional spectrum suffers more on the negative side, it would drive them to their darker emotions. Are you thinking about using the false Naruto _ Yugo asks. Nar nods and looks at her. Yeah, I am actually. I don't know how much my negative half will affect my psyche, but I don't want to take a chance of it getting the best of me later on in my journey. So, yeah, I'll be using the false. She stares at him for a little bit before sighing. Okay, but be careful Naruto-kun. She asked with a concerned expression on her face, worried about the young Saiyan. Nar smiles warmly at her and nods back. Don't worry, Yugi-chan. I'll be fine, I promise, he assured her. Ah, that is so cute. My little kitten is concerned about her boyfriend. Matabi purred in her vessel's mindscape, causing Yudo less than greater than eyes to widen and a blush to form on her face. For Kami's sake, he's not my boyfriend. Damn it, she roared at the two-tailed cat who meowed. Nar noticed the blush on her face and smirked as a certain cat teasing you again. He asked and got a nod from her. I see. And just so you know, Yugi-chan, I like you, too. Yugo blinked rapidly at his statement. Was the only thing that could come out of her before Naruto did something even more surprising. He leaned forward and gave her a peck on the cheek before saluting and zips into the house, leaving a stunned Yu-Gi-Oh at the doorway. The blush on her face grew while she touched the cheek that Nar kissed. He kissed me. Naruto kissed me. The gears in her head got back to working and a grin slowly spreads on her face. Matabi giggles as she witnessed a chibi version of her vessel jump up and down, squealing in joy with hearts in her eyes. The next day, Falls of Truth. Nar was standing in front of a large waterfall, listening as the water crashed against the rocks on the bottom while a few fish were swimming into the mouth of the river that flowed downstream into the jungle. It's now or never, Nar said before stepping onto the platform and sitting Indian-styled. Goku-sensei, Shenron-sensei, once I enter my mindscape, I'm going to have to ask you to not interfere. This is something I'll have to do alone. Goku nodded in agreement, as did Shenron, both being proud of how much Naruto has grown since his travels and knew that he was mentally ready to battle his inner darkness. We understand, Naruto, and I wish you luck. We less than greater than LL move to a different section of your mindscape so that you won't be distracted. Good luck, the legendary hero said before the link between them was cut. Naruto stared at the waterfall intently and then closed his eyes in concentration in order to link himself to his mind. From afar, Yugito and B were watching from the edge of a cliff and said vessels each had serious yet concerned expressions on their faces, praying that their friend can succeed in conquering his dark side. Good luck, Naruto_, she thought while watching his still form. She felt a hand on her shoulder and looked up to see her uncle sensei give a reassuring grin. Don't fret little Yugi. The Sugaki will pull through and gain victory. Yugito says nothing but smiles as a form of thank you and turns her attention back at Naruto's still form. Unaware that B's expression went grim. Kami help us if he fails because there won't be a force on earth that will stop him should his darkness win. Naruto's mindscape. Nar opened his eyes to see a replica of the waterfall and didn't sense his sensei in the area. He stands and faces the waterfall, narrowing his eyes as he watched a shadowed figure forms behind the waterfall. His eyes widened slightly and he witnessed the replica of himself appear to look similar to him, but with a difference being his facial appearance. A smug and arrogant smirk formed on his face and his eyes screamed danger as they were more primal in appearance. And like Naruto, his tail swayed behind him, with the last different being the lining around his eyes were deeper like Majin Vegeta's were. So this is my inner darkness, huh? Yes, I am, and I was wondering when you would show yourself. Yumi Naro answered, in a deeper tone that carried a hint of arrogance, causing Naruto's eyes to widen in surprise. Whoa, you can read my mind. Oh, wait, that's right. We're less than greater than the same person, he said in a sheepish manner. Yumi Nar scoffs at his lighter half-simp impedance. No kidding, clown. We're one in the same with the only difference being that I'm the real you. He answered smugly while Nar frowned. No, you're not. Nar replied back to his darker half, who chuckled deeply. Of course, I am the real one. I am the true representation of an ancient warrior race, one that was once known in the galaxy as the strongest to ever exist. Yumi Nar boasted, while my darker half is delusional, he acts like that Vegeta guy Goku sensei talked about. Nar thought, so, you know the reason I'm here then. Yumi. Nar nods. But of course, you're here to defeat me in order to overcome your inner darkness. But it won't happen because I intend to crush my weaker half, gain control of you, and bring our race back to greatness, he declared. Nar, on the other hand, scowled at what his darker half planned on doing if he won. That's not going to happen as long as I'm around. Yumi Naruto simply HMPED at his response and folded his arms in a fashion similar to Vegeta's when he faced Goku for the first time. Then it shouldn't take too long for me to end. Maybe after I win, I'll deal with that idiot rapper, his village, and maybe get some action with that cute blonde and then maybe pay a visit to that russet-haired broad. I believe her name is May. You're as you call her, he said with a perverse grin on his face. Naruto's eyes flared up in anger. Like hell you will, because the only way you're getting to them is through me. And I'll be damned if I lose this fight. As he powers up, his hair rises and transforms into his Super Saiyan state. Yummy. Nar simply grins at his other half. And much to Naruto's surprise, he transforms into a Super Saiyan. Why so? Shocked. I possess the same abilities as you do. Why? Nar states, getting a smirk from Nar. I should have known better, but it doesn't change anything. I'm still going to beat you. He declared before getting into the Kame stance, Goku's fighting stance. Yummy. Naruto, on the other hand, smirks and gets into his own stance, Vegeta's stance when he first faced Goku. We less than greater than CY, Nar replied back. The two opposites had a stare off, waiting for the other to make the first move. Why? Nar flexes his hands a few times with a smirk still plastered on his face, ready to drive his so-called weaker half into the pavement. Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3.0 Battle Theme Number 11. Nar suddenly vanished in a burst of speed as did Y. Nar in the surrounding area for a few seconds before what sounded like a sonic boom echoed throughout the forest. Several more sonic booms echoed throughout the sky before Naruto and Y. Nar appeared with their forearms clashing against the other, pausing for a few seconds before they each unleashed an onslaught of punches and kick that appeared like blurs to the naked eye. The force behind their moves caused a strong breeze to brush trees back, as well as other forms of debris to fly in different directions, the water in the river to rise up, and the rock textures to crumble into piles of rubble. The assault continued for a few seconds until Nar slipped into Y. Naruto's defense and delivers an elbow uppercut into his chin, making his head jerk back in surprise. He recovers quickly and returns the hit with a right hook to Naruto's jaw. The two once again vanished, moving at speeds that would make Minato Namikaze look slow in comparison, releasing shock waves around the area. When they appeared again, Nar is struck in the jaw by a high kick, but retaliates by striking Nar in the jaw with another right hook, and Nar finished by driving a vicious low punch directly into the gut of his darker half. Nar hunches over and coughs from the punch while Nar takes this opportunity to strike him in the face with a right haymaker that sent him plummeting into the forest. As he crashed, dust kicked up into the air with Nar descending downwards to his opponent. His eyes widened as a yellow ki blast headed towards him, stopping in midair and vanishes as the blast sailed past him. He appears on top of a rock structure, watching the attack explode and disperse until his senses flared up. Nar turns around and sees another ki blast that was bigger than the last one he for him and once again blurs away as it destroys the rock texture. He hops backwards a few times against the rocky terrain before taking to the air as Nar appears in a stance his other half was familiar with. Nar crouches down, curls his fingers, and places both his hands together at chest level facing the same direction so that the palm of one hand is on the back of the other. Light purple orb forms in his hand and hums to life as he gathered the energy for it. Nar pauses in the air and brings his arms back with a blue orb gathering around his cupped hands. Take this. Gaelic gun. Nar thrusts his hands forward and fires a fuchsia-colored ki beam upwards. Kamehameha. Nar calls out and fires a Kamehameha wave downwards. The blue and purple beams descended towards one another and clashed, forming a blue and fuchsia-colored dome in the center that slowly expanded. A power struggle occurred as the two Super Saiyans pushed more energy into their attacks, making the dome of energy grow even more. It couldn't contain its form and it erupted into an explosion of energy. The force behind it sent debris everywhere and also sent Nar flying backwards and crashed into the side of a rock texture and bounced off it. He cried out pain, unaware that Nar appeared behind him, grinning and strikes him in the back with a backhand. Nar descends to the ground and crashes, sliding to the end of another rock texture. He gets up on one knee while Nar ascends towards him, grinning in a feral manner. Nar hops back as the Dark Saiyan hits the ground with a ki-enhanced punch, causing a crater to form. And looks up to see Naro back flipping through the terrain. Why? Nar pulls his hand out of the crater and takes off after Nar said plants his feet onto the edge of a cliff and bounces off flying towards Y. Nar performing a dropkick as did the darker half. Their attacks clashed, hitting them both directly under the jaw, and the two were wide-eyed. They separated and both landed on the ground opposite from one another with their hair and clothes ruffling in the wind and had a stare off. The two remained silent for a while. Until Nar spoke up. Impressive. I guess you're as weak as I thought. He remarked, getting a smirk from Nar. Funny. I could say the same to you. The smirk on his face disappeared and was replaced with a serious one. But if it's all right with you, I'd like to skip the warm-up and get this over with. Yummy. Nar grinned in a feral manner and nods in agreement. My thoughts exactly. Naruto's face scrunches up in concentration and his muscles bulge a little, resulting in his aura flaring up. Veins throbbed around his biceps, neck, and temple as his power increased. He crossed his arms as his hair spiked up even more. The golden aura around Naruto flared up in an even more wild-like fashion, releasing a higher frequency soundwise with a lightning aura arching around his body. His hair was even a deeper gold color and spiked up even more in a wild-like fashion with a few bangs hanging down similar to Gohan's hairstyle, but with two bangs with one being slightly shorter than the other. His muscle mass was a little more pronounced, but not overly so. His skin tone was a lighter color, as well as his clothes due to the increased energy output from the golden aura. His facial features grew more sharper and fiercer, with his eyes being sharper and more primal in appearance. Yummy. Naruto's eyes widened in awe as he saw his other half ascend to Super Saiyan 2 and then snaps out of it. Impressive, but anything you can do. Raises his arms up while gathering a huge amount of energy, and releases it as he brings them down, ascending to Super Saiyan 2 as well. I can do as well, he declared. Now it was Naruto's eyes who widened in astonishment. You, too? Nar questioned, and his darker half snorted in annoyance. I told you this before, idiot. I have the same abilities as you, including the transformations you've obtained from training in the time chamber. He stated. Now enough stalling. Let's get started. The two opposites dashed towards each other with their fists reared back and swing forward. When their fists collided, the force behind them emitted a shock wave so powerful that the ground underneath them couldn't handle the pressure and cratered under their form. The rock textures rumbled and a few collapsed under the force. Song ends. Meanwhile, outside of the actual waterfall of truth, Naruto's meditative form was in the Super Saiyan 2 state, and the effects of the transformation resulted in the ground rumbling violently, the water rising, and the birds in the forest flew due to the trees leaning backwards and shaking. Both Bi and Yugo were using their chakra to remain rooted onto the ground, covering their eyes with their arms in order to keep the debris out of their eyes. Unfortunately, the shockwave Naruto released from his form caused Yugito to lose her focus on her footing and was almost sent flying backwards, but a tentacle shoots out of his back and catches her in its coil. Don't fret, little knee. Uncle B won't let go of thee, he assured his niece. If I wasn't afraid of taking a one-way flight off the island right now, I'd be using him as a scratching post, she thought. And she was pulled towards him but ended up getting hit upside the head by a flying rock. Itaii, she cried out while Matabi cringed. Ooh, that going to leave a mark. Goku vs. Android 19 Bra Awai Nar rushes at his foe and swings a left and right hook at Naruto, who was forced to evade them both before the Dark Saiyan unleashed a flurry of punches that made him block or evade, while moving backward before he had a chance to recover. Nar drove a knee strike into Naruto's stomach, causing him to gasp out in pain and hunch over. Yami Nar raises his right arm up and delivers an elbow strike to his back and sends Nar falling towards the ground. Said Saiyan falls on all fours and slowly get up and leaps right back into the air to avoid getting kicked into a crater caused by Y. Nar, who looks up at Naruto's retreating form before flying out of the rubble and stops in front of his other half before attempting to hit him with another knee strike that Nar blocks with his own knee. Yami Nar growls before smirking at his foe while red static emits around them. "What's wrong? I thought you said we were going to skip the warm-up," he questioned, and Nar smirks back. "Sorry. Force of habit." Nar apologized before they backed off and lunged at each other again. "Why?" Nar swings a right hook, but Nar catches it. He attempts to do the same with his and gets caught by his other half as well. They both growl as their arms interlocked and then deliver a series of simultaneous knee strikes. As the attacks continued, Nar takes this opportunity to deliver a headbutt right into Naruto's face. He cried out and releases the darker warrior from the grapple, holding his throbbing head with Nar taking this opportunity to attack him with a series of left and right hooks into his torso. Nar coughs up spit while Nar grins as he continued with the assault. Nar recovers quickly and catches the fists, much to the surprise of Yami Nar. He gets him in the lower jaw with 2 knee strikes, stunning him, and finishes it off with a high knee strike to the temple and sends him flying and crashing into the edge of a cliff. The embedded Dark Saiyan grits his teeth and opens his eyes to see Nar float towards him. That's more like it," he growled. He crosses his hands and pulls them back, freeing himself from the edge by releasing a burst of invisible ki and left a near circular shape in the cliff. They both breathe heavily as they floated close to each other and stop when they're nearly nose to nose and have a stare off. Their aura slowly hums to life and flares around them with static emitting around their forms. Nar snarls in a challenging fashion while Nar smiles back. The darker half frowns but returns the same grin since they were both starting to get serious and both let out a battle cry. They released their aura in a bright golden flash and continue the match with a series of punches and kick. While in the air, they paused in their assault with their fists reared back and swung forward, delivering a bone-crushing blow to their jaws, and their heads snapped back at the same time. Nar recovers faster than his opposite and unleashes a series of punches upon Naruto's stomach and flares up his aura as he continued on with the attack. He then hits with a right hook across the jaw, knees him hard in the gut, and then delivers a reverse elbow strike into his neck. Yumi grins at the fact that he was gaining the upper hand so far, for his eyes widened when Nar grabbed his leg and swung him around for several and threw him to the ground. Nar flips and lands on his feet and looks up only to see Nar gone. "What the?" he wondered before his senses went off, and turns his head to the left and instantly blocks a right punch with his forearms, courtesy of Nar, who then pushes him back with a flurry of rapid punches. Nar had some trouble blocking and evading some of the punches that got through his defense. As Nar went on the attack, he pulled back and delivers a mid-kick into Naruto's torso, making his eyes bug out. Nar smirks at the successful hit and pulls back again, channeling some ki into his fist in order to deliver a powerful blow. Naruto senses the power behind the physical attack. And when Nar swings his fist forward, he vanishes in a burst of speed. Nar curses his Nar appears behind him and smirks. The teenage Saiyan freezes on the spot as his darker half aimed both palms at his chest with a ball of yellow ki and fires. A flash of yellow forms around the area as Nar was sent flying into a rock texture and a blazing explosion occurs. Nar stays floating in midair, waiting for the dust clear. When it does, a hole is revealed in the rocky wall, and there was no sign of Naruto. But he knew better than to believe he defeated his other half with an attack as weak as that. He watched intently for any sign on his foe, and his eyes widened as he saw a ball of ki hums to life, revealing Naruto's form, and he fires a ki blast at his darker half. He retaliates and fires a ki blast at his opponent. The energy blasts descend towards the other, and once they clash, a dome of energy forms at the colliding blasts. Nar rises out of the hole, pushing ki into the colliding energy techniques, and continued to push forward until he was close to the dome. Yellow static surges through as they push more power into their attacks. Nar grits his teeth as he continued to push forward and add more energy, as did Yummy Nar. "Oh, no you don't. I will not allow you to come out victorious," he swore as he pushed more energy into his move. Nar does the same, resulting in the dome growing and glowing like a miniature sun. The two warriors both let out a battle cry as the dome of energy was now the size of a cage tower, covering the entire area before erupting into an explosion so great that the entire area was coated in a golden light. Song ends. When the flash cleared, the entire area was in ruins. Rubble and chunks of rocks scattered. Trees were uprooted and smoke rose from the debris. Dangling from a cliff was Naruto, and from his appearance, his outfit was ripped and torn in several places and was sporting cuts and bruises, bleeding slightly around his arms, legs, chest, and parts of his face. Groans. "Man, I never would have thought that my dark side could be so vicious. I feel like I just fought through an army of Beiju," he muttered before he felt himself being pulled up from over the edge and is now face to face with Yami Naru, who was also sporting the same amount of damage as his opposite. But the difference was that he was smiling in a calm yet dangerous way and was holding him up by the wrist. The Dark Saiyan stood up over the edge with Naruto still in his grasp, smirking. He then spun around and threw Naruto over his shoulder and into a wall of rock. Nar cries out in pain as he hit the wall hard enough to be embedded and leave an imprint around his form. "Why?" Nar brings his right arm forward, extending his index and middle finger out, and fired 5 rings of energy at Naruto's trapped form. They bind his wrists, ankles, and the last one binds him around the throat and closes up slightly, making Nar release a shocking sound. Heather vanishes and appears before his trapped brother with a smug expression. "What's the matter? Not winning as easily as you thought you would," he taunted at Naruto's, who was glaring back at him. "I never said this would be." Nar chokes out, getting a snort from his other half. "HMPH, you don't get it, do you? You're not going to be winning at all," he remarked, and then slaps him twice across the face with a forehand and backhand, resulting in Nar growling in an angry fashion. "Why?" Nar returns the expression baring his canines. "What temper you pissed off at feeling trapped and humiliated by your better half?" "You're not my better half." Nar snapped back only to gasp out in pain. As why Nar drove his knee into the Saiyan's stomach. "Yes, I am the real you," he declared, and punches him in the jaw. You hits him with a left hook. R hits him with a right jab. Nothing hits him with another left jab, but a fake. He unleashes an onslaught of punches and knee strikes to the face, chest, and torso of Nar simultaneously until Nar coughs up blood and he stops the assault. "Look at you, the last of our kin, the legacy of a mighty race of warriors that brought fear to our enemies, reduced to a soft-hearted, idealistic fool by his master. Why?" Nar spat at the ground in disgust. "You have done nothing but play the role of hero to bunch of insignificant insects who could care less if you lived or died. And it makes me sick to see you act the way you do." A dark expression formed on his face as he stared at the fallen form of his other half. "No more. I will not allow you to continue this charade any longer. The time has come for me to take my rightful place as the king of this body. I will not allow myself to hindered by the beliefs of a dead man. Your days are over. Every breath you Take as an insult to my honor and pride as a warrior. He brings him hand up and wraps it around Naruto's throat. I will break you, Nar. I will crush you until you are nothing but a memory. And then I will do what you failed to do. I will bring our people back to glory. I will destroy anyone that gets in my way. And if I'm feeling generous, I might even spar some of the people you care about, especially that girl Yugo, May, and maybe even your sister and mother. A perverse smile takes form on his face. I might consider keeping them as slaves and convince them to help me revive the Saiyan race once I've conquered this mudball of a planet. Naruto's eyes snapped open when he heard this and snarls in a primal fashion. His muscles flex up as he attempts to pull himself out of his prison. Much to Naruto's shock and disbelief, his aura flares to life and he breaks out of the prison, forcing Nar to move back from the power input. Congratulations, my dark half. You've officially pissed me off. His aura grew and released a shock wave so powerful that it sent dust and wind flying everywhere. You can threaten me all you like, but when you threaten the lives of those I care about, then all bets are off. He roared. Why? Nar got a good look into his other half's eyes and realized that they no longer held the same compassion and fearlessness. Now they expressed nothing but primal rage and fury, and now knew that Naruto was out to destroy him, to crush him until he was nothing but dust in the wind. A bead of sweat dropped from his brow as he now understood that he just freed the beast from his cage and he was its current target. Something tells me that I've just pushed my luck. A Yatsuki, son of the late Sandaime Raikage, current Yandami Raikage of Kumob no Sado and fastest man alive after the death of Minato Namikaze, was sitting in his chair doing a series of arm curl-ups with a massive dumbbell that would appear to be difficult to lift for a normal man. But then he wasn't exactly normal. He was a tall, dark-skinned man with a large muscular build with his blonde hair in the combed back, a small mustache and beard. His face is very distinguished with pronounced cheekbones and tear troughs under his eyes and a prominent crease across his forehead. He has pointed canines and his top lip also has a darker hue than the bottom one. Unlike other Kages, seems to wear his Kage Haori and hat on a regular basis without a shirt underneath, further displaying his hulking physique. He has black Fuma shuriken tattoos on both shoulders and around his wrists and forearms were a pair of gold bangle bracelets which each have protrusions that can jut out when he attacks an opponent. The rest of his outfit consisted of a pair of black pants, chenoards, sandals, and a gold belt around his waist with a boar's face engraved in the center. He had pretty much spent the day doing a series of light exercises since all of his paperwork was completed. But from the expression on his face, the man was bored as hell, especially since he had his brother take their niece Yugo to Turtle Island to work on communicating and training with her Buju like B did, and was inwardly wishing for something to happen that needed his direct attention. The door to his office was forced open by a jonin who was panting heavily before his leader. What is the meaning of this? A demanded in a low gruff voice. The Kumo jonin regained his breath and bowed his head to the massive man. My apologies Raikage Dono, but there's something you must see atop of the tower. He informed. The man raised an eyebrow and blinked a few times at his subordinate before sighing. Very well, he said, and shunchins up to the rooftop along with the John to see what the fuss is about. Raikage Tower rooftop. I stood on the roof along with the jonin and his two guards Darui and C. Darui is a fairly tall, dark-skinned man with a slightly bulbous nose, a lazy look in his eyes, and shaggy white hair which covers his left eye. He wears a high-collared sleeveless uniform with loose-fitting pants, bandages on his wrists, and the one strap over one shoulder flak jacket of a Kumoger shinobi. Darui also has stylized characters for Waterway and Lightning Lay tattooed on his right and left shoulders respectively, denoting his chakras nature affinities water release and lightning release, as well as the fact that he has a Kek Jenk the storm release 3. The tattoo on his left arm also signifies that he has inherited the third Rockage's black lightning. He carries a broad foldable cleaver-like sword strapped wrapped to his back. C is a young man with short blonde hair and dark eyes. He wears a sleeveless black shirt with a one strap over one shoulder, white flak jacket, forehead protector, black elbow-length arm guards, and the red and white Kumoger chenoards along with a pair of sandals. I was just about to ask them what the problem was until he saw something that made his eyes widen. Far away from their location was a pillar of golden light with what looked like lightning coursing around it. Hovering over the top of it was a large black cloud the size of incontinent with lightning cackling. Underneath it, and the group can hear thunder booming from it. What in the name of Kami is that? I asked no one particular. We don't know, sir. This occurred not too long ago. The energy level that pillar of light is emitting is off the charts. C answered. I'm talking Beiju level reading, if not higher. A's eyes widened when he heard that higher than a Beiju. The only beings with a higher level of power would be the gods themselves. His eyes widened even more when he realized that his brother and niece were on the island and possibly in the middle of the energy output. Oh, Kami B and Yugo-chan are possibly in the middle of that. What do you want to do, boss? Darui asked his leader. Gather several ambu and meet me at the docks. Whatever is on that island cannot be good if it can emit a level of power from this far. Yet, for some reason, it feels familiar, like it has occurred before, but at a higher level. He pondered before order his men back to their stations and have his two guards gather up the ambu with Nar. Nar rushes at his darker half with his left arm reared back, ready to deliver a bone-crushing punch to his skull, but gets struck in the face with a right hook and sent flying backwards with the Dark Saiyan in hot pursuit. He had his right foot reared back and prepared to drive it into Naruto's chest, only for his brother to recover, flare his ki and counters with a right hook and strikes him across the jaw. Why? Nar cries out as his body jerked back from the vicious punch, resulting in spit and blood flying out of his mouth. As he recovered, they each traded blows that were so intense that it sounded like thunder was booming across the area. And then the duo went on an onslaught that shook the land. Dust rose all around the battlefield and the ground underneath their airborne forms rumbled while flashes of electricity coursed around their blazing auras. Several rock textures explode from the force behind the knee strike. Nar attempted to strike the side of Naruto's skull, but he shrugs it off and swings a diagonal punch that Nar dodges, releasing a force so great that it creates a 30-foot wide trench, reducing everything in its path into nothing. Yami Naruto looks around for his opponent in the dust-filled area, but his senses alerted his to danger and dodges to the left as an energy blast passes by his face, only to get a lariat into the chest by Nar, who only goes flying back for a few seconds due to Nar grabbing him around the ankles and spins him around several times before releasing him. Nar vanishes in a burst of speed as Nar went sailing across the landscape via the air and then appears with his right leg reared back as his darker half descended towards him. Nar swung his leg out only for Nar to phase out, surprising the young Saiyan. Suddenly, pain erupted from his back, as Nar drove his elbow into Naruto's spine, and the young Saiyan cries out in agony. His screams were cut off when Yami Naro interlocked his arms around the stunned warrior. They both vanished and appeared in the air where the Dark Saiyan directed their forms to. The ground flared his aura, and they descended to the ground at top speed. "What's the matter, clown?" he taunted as they headed to the hardened ground. The impact resulted in an earth-shattering crash that shook the entire area and causing dust to rise up around the area. Nar grits his teeth as he staggered back onto his feet. But why? Nar delivers a flying headbutt directly into his forehead and sent Nar sliding across the ground. Yummy. Naruto brings his hands together and fires a ki blast at his lighter half, who flips back on his feet and leaps to the side as the blast hit the area he was formerly at. Why? Nar swings his arm in the direction and fires another ki blast at his foe. He grins viciously as he saw the blast hit Nar and caused a miniature explosion, and then leaps forward with his right arm outstretched backwards in a stabbing position. Die, he cried out as he was about run his hand through his weaker half. But then his senses kicked in, and he skidded to a halt into the air due to the dust clearing and not seeing Nar in the crater. I've got to say, you've got a few tricks up your sleeve, brother. Why? Nar growled and turned his head to see Nar standing on a slab of rock with his arms folded and his aura flaring to life, smirking as he stared down at his other half. But then so do I. Waterfalls of truth. Lightning rained from the blackened sky. The winds blew hard enough to rip trees from their roots. And the ground rumbled violently due to the energy output Naruto's meditative state was releasing. Said Saiyan was floating midair in a dome of golden energy with lightning ike energy arching around him. Ah, this is insane. Yugo screamed as she clung onto her uncle's back with her clawed hands. Hey, easy with the claws, kitty. B shouted as his clung onto a large boulder that was embedded into the ground, though he was unaware that the force of the wind was loosening the large rock from its position until it started to wobble. He looked at the ground and his brows rose in dread and a bead of sweat fell from his face. Oh shit, he muttered. Yeah, she asked her uncle. Hang on tight to me. He cried out as the boulder flew free from its spot with Yugo and beyond it, flying across the forest from the gust of wind. Ah, Yugo screamed as they descended into the forest. Naruto's mindscape. Ha, yummy. Nar bellowed as he swung his head forward and clashed with Naruto's. Both opposite halves were engaged in a grappling match with their auras flaring wildly as they both reared their heads back and slammed them together, releasing a sonic boom that echoed around the battlefield. They performed this attack pattern several more times before stopping, snarling at each other as they tried to break the grapple hold. Bioelectricity buzzed around their forms as their aura flared even more. Nar and Nar break their hold and leap back, dispersing their energy, and the Dark Saiyan reacts first by swinging a high kick, which Nar blocks with his forearm and counters with a left hook. Why? Nar dodges to the left, placing both hands on the ground, and kicks both feet towards Naruto's chin. He evades it and takes this opportunity to drives his right knee into his darker half's torso and sends him sailing midair until he manages to adjust his body and flips his legs over, landing on solid ground. As he tries to regain his breath, Nar dashes towards his form. Why? Nar vanishes and appears under the Saiyan's running form and knocks him off balance. With a sweep kick, Nar curses as he falls towards the ground but catches himself and flips forward while Nar rushes at him and attempts to strike him across the jaw with another right hook. The attack fails as Nar catches the move and counters with a palm strike to the face, making stumble back as his quarry goes around him, grabs him around the waist, lifting them up into the air and slams him into the rocky ground with a German suplex. Why? Nar cries out from the impact. And then Nar brings him back up for another. But the other half break out of the hold with an elbow strike to face, stunning the young Super Saiyan while he flips over and strikes him across the head with a reverse roundhouse kick. He grins at the successful hit and tries with a secondary one, but Nar catches it in both hands, surprising his darker half. He pushes back and knocks his other foot off balance. Grabs him around the face and slams him into the ground only to get kicked in the chest and skids back, clutching his chest while his other half flips back on his feet. The two warriors each panned heavily as they stare each other down. Neither looked ready to give up as too much was at stake. For Naruto, it was the safety of those he cared about in the world. And for Yami Naruto, it was to purge himself of his compassionate side and emotions, gaining freedom and restoring the reputation of his race. The darker half's panting slowly turned into a tired laugh. Feels good, doesn't it? He questioned his lighter half, unleashing all that rage. In the midst of a battle. The feel of adrenaline pumping through your veins. The thrill of facing stronger opponents. Does it not excite you? Nar remained silent as he saw the smirk on his darker half's face. You can deny it all you want, but you are a Saiyan, a warrior bred for battle. Fighting is in your blood, just as it is our ancestors. That may be so, but my sensei fought to protect others and not for his own gain. I won't deny it. I love to fight powerful opponents, but I don't let my thrill for battle dissuade my reasons for getting stronger. Our race's drive for battle and mayhem nearly caused them to go extinct, and I don't intend to take the route. Nar declared. Why? Nar on the other hand scowls, and that's what makes you weak. DBZ theme. Gohan vs Dabura IV theme. No, it's what makes me stronger. Nar yelled back before. Why? Nar roars in fury and his aura flares to life. Nar does the same thing and gets ready for another fight. The duo vanish in a burst of speed until a series of sonic booms echo through the area. The two opposites each unleash a series of punches and kicks that look like a series of blur that either met their mark, were blocked, or evaded. The onslaught continued until they both crashed into a mountainside, causing chunks of rocks and dust to rise up and the duo take off, moving like blurs across the battlefield. Sonic booms echoed throughout the landscape and random environmental textures were demolished. Two golden blurs dashed towards each other and clashed, releasing a burst of golden-laced wind and electricity that shook the land. Nar and Y. Naruto's fists collided from the impact and they continued with the assault. Y. Nar managed to deliver a kick into his opponent's torso, but Nar stood tall from the vicious move and countered with a skull-splitting head, but before vanishing again and zipping across the battlefield simultaneously. They appeared once again, unleashing a series of punches and kicks. But Naruto was doing more defending as Yumi didn't let down in his attack. The darker half grins in triumph as he broke through Naruto's defense and assaulted his face with countless punches as well as his chest and torso in order not to give Naruto a chance to counter or gain distance. You see, you emotions can't beat me. A weakling can't beat me. You can't. You can't. You can't. He laughs gleefully as his victory was at hand. He stopped the barrage of punches, brings his leg back, and swings it sideways to Naruto's torso. The Saiyan, on the other hand, dodges the swing, catches the appendage, and twists it with enough force to nearly rip the hole off from the knee. Why? Nar cries out in agony as his lighter side twisted his leg harder and reacts by using his other leg and strikes him with a boot to the face and then delivers a right hook to the jaw, sending Nar flying backwards and crashing through several rock textures. Nar takes off after him, intent on wiping him out, but from the dust an energy blast shoots towards him. He moves to the left as the blast bypasses his face, only for Nar to appear over him with his elbow raised and brings it down in his darker half's spinal column. Nar cries out as he descends towards the ground and crashes, creating a 20 feet wide crater with him face first into it. Nar appeared hovering over his opponent's down form and watches him slowly get up and snarl. Gee, you're so annoying. Why won't you just give up and accept I'm better than you? He questioned. Nar tilted his head to spit out some saliva mixed with blood and stares down at his foe. Naruto's ki flares to life and takes off like a rocket towards the blonde. Once he got close enough, he swung his fist at Naruto's face and the lighter half caught it in his palm. Why? Naruto's eyes widened in surprise as his hand was caught with little effort. What's this? He caught my punch. But how? We should be evenly matched considering we both exerted a lot of power. He growls and attempts to strike him in the face with his left fist, but Nar caught that one too. Again. Why? Nar was shocked beyond belief and attempted to pull his hands from his other half's grip, but couldn't. Let go, fool. Why? Nar demanded as he tried to free himself. Nar kept a calm expression on his face as he increased his grip and their auras flared to life. The struggle continued until Nar broke one hand free and attempts to deliver a haymaker, but Nar blurs away. He vanished. Why? Nar looked around in every direction for his opponent. A whistle was heard and he turned to the source to see Nar standing on a platform with his arms folded. Looking for me? Nar called out with a hint of amusement in his eyes. Why? Naruto's brow twitched and he fires a ki blast in Naruto's direction and smirks when it explodes. When the dust cleared, it revealed Nar standing there not the least bit affected by the attack. End theme. Nar yawns and tilts his head to the side, cracking his neck a little, much to Yami less than greater than S annoyance. Is that all you've got? Once again,